Chapter 185. Guan Xinghan's voice was full of anger and sorrow. I may be a widow in the Jun family, but I'm the eldest granddaughter-in-law. So, I'm only a concubine if I marry into the Li family. If Yunbi Chun of the Shun Xian family takes a fancy to me and wants me as a wife, a concubine, or a servant, then the family will be very willing. Perhaps they will force me. Yunbi Chun will be stronger than Li Ju Tian, and the Guan family will get even more benefits. The Guan family is also a respectable family. Father, how can a Guan family be so shameless? How can they be so shameless? I'd rather be a widow in the Jun family for the rest of my life than to see those shameless people. I can't let those despicable people get away with it. Guan Xinghan's cold face was filled with determination and sadness. If I had to choose, I would rather let the Guan family perish like a heroic family than see a group of people with white hair and beards become a group of dogs wagging their tails and begging for mercy. Following these words, the unyielding and hysterical side of Guan Xinghan's character finally broke out. Guandong Lu stood there blankly, and his face was full of pain. Although his stature was still tall and sturdy, but it was filled with the desolation of a hero at the end of his road. Towards his daughter's sharp words, he really didn't know how to reply, nor did he know how to reply. The guilt and humiliation in his heart fiercely gnawed at his soul, causing all the meridians in his body to spasm painfully. Your daughter only wants to know, Father, what do you plan to do now? Guan Xinghan's back was facing her father, and her voice was somewhat desolate and powerless, but it was also filled with anger and coldness. Jun Wui has already given me the answer. Guandong Lu smiled bitterly. Even if we cancel the engagement, the Shuehun Manor will still have to step over the corpses of the Jun family if they want you to step on the sedan chair. Guandong Lu smiled self-deprecatingly. I, Guandong Lu, am the head of the Guan family, but I can't afford to provoke the Jun family, nor the Shuehun Manor. But as you said, the Jun family is the benefactor of our Guan family. Our steward cannot be ungrateful. Guandong Lu's voice suddenly became fierce. It's me. It's the entire Guan family that is abandoning their daughter. It's the Jun family that is protecting my daughter, to protect the daughter that I, her father, had already given up on. And the Shuehun Manor wants to rob and humiliate my daughter. I've been aggrieved my whole life for the sake of my family, and for the sake of the big picture. This time I want be a father for once. Guandong Lu's face hardened as his eyes became bloodshot. I want to be a father. After saying this, Guandong Lu suddenly felt a sense of relief in his heart. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. To hell with life and death. That brat from a Jun family was right. If a family doesn't have a backbone, then what's the point of struggling at death's door? Father! Guan Xinghan's body fiercely shook as she suddenly turned around like a whirlwind to look at her father with eyes full of surprise. Guandong Lu smiled faintly and nodded deeply. Xinghan, in this world, the Jun family isn't the only family that has a man. Our Guan family also has a man. Guan Xinghan's face showed a proud expression as she said, I've always known that my father is a man of indomitable spirit. Father is a good man. Guandong Lu smiled bitterly and said, that brother-in-law of yours, his curses are very vicious. However, thanks to his curses, Father has come to understand that there are some things in this world that a man must do even if he knows that he will die. Compared to these things, the big picture and survival are not important. He chuckled twice, and then suddenly asked in a strange tone, that debauchee you've been talking about in your letters, that good-for-nothing brother-in-law, is that him? It's not like he's an elephant. Guan Xinghan suddenly blushed to her ears and said, Father, you're making fun of me, but Mo Xie has changed a lot these days compared to before. He really is like a different person. Right now, he's acting like a real man. Guandong Lu smiled meaningfully and said, Is that so? Then why do you praise him so much when he cursed at your father? Humph! Father, you're so hateful. At this moment, Guan Xinghan felt as if she had returned to her childhood, and scrupulously acting like a spoiled child in front of her father. Guangdong Lu laughed heartily. Father, come in, the autumn rain is cold. It's not good for your body to get wet. Guan Qinghan suddenly felt sorry for her father. Now you finally feel sorry for me? It's too late. Father's old bones are already soaked. Guangdong Lu laughed and joked. But today's rain is good. It's good. Drenched enough to call back my precious daughter's heart. Drenched enough to wake me up. A man should be like this. If I sacrifice my daughter's innocence in exchange for a moment's survival, even though I'm still alive, I'd rather die. Finished speaking, he lovingly looked at his daughter, laughed heartily, and turned around to leave. His tall and sturdy body braved the wind and rain, one step at a time, but each step was filled with strength. It was abnormally steady and firm. Guan Qinghan's eyes became blurry with tears. On the other side, in the flowering shrubs a few feet away, Jun Wui quietly stood there. His rigid face showed a slight smile, and softly said to himself, Guangdong Lu, only now can you be the Guangdong Lu that I knew all those years ago. Only now can you be a qualified father, an iron-blooded man. Looking through the curtain of rain, Guangdong Lu thought to himself, when Mo Xie went out this time, why do I feel like something big is going to happen? Why hasn't he come back yet? I wonder how he's doing now. This nephew of mine, he's really mysterious. AI, ever since he promised to cure my leg, has there ever been a day when he's not mysterious? Being mysterious is good. With a light sigh, Guangdong Lu's body flashed and suddenly disappeared without a trace. The masked man in black, also known as Jun Dashao, had borrowed the strength of solitary eagle's palm to fly backwards and conveniently threw the Xian Dan into solitary eagle's hands. This hot potato had finally been given away. Jun Moxie's body flew backwards and crashed into a large tree with a loud bang. Then, he immediately activated the yin-yang escape and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Jun Moxie clutched his chest and gasped for breath. The 8 great masters were the 8 great masters after all, worthy of standing at the peak of the world. The solitary falcon's attack had been a test, and he had put most of his strength behind it. But the power contained in that attack had still made Jun Mo Xie feel very uncomfortable. In fact, he felt like vomiting in his chest. Jun Moxie was relying on the Hong Jun Pagoda's energy to fill his meridians, and barely managed to avoid injury. But his heart was still somewhat shocked. So the strength of the 8 great masters had actually reached such a level. Mother Kerr, this bald eagle. One day, I'll teach him a lesson. Jun Moxie cursed in his heart and paid attention to the fierce battle in front of him. Jun Dashao's 6 senses were locked on the surrounding space, and he frowned from time to time as he muttered to himself, how come there's still no movement? Could it be that such a big movement hasn't alerted anyone? Jun Mo Xie's original intention was naturally not as simple as inciting an intense battle, nor was it as simple as causing chaos. In fact, Jun Moxie had another goal in mind besides finding out how to use the level 9 Xiandan. Naturally, Jun Moxie would have made a more thorough plan if not for the Shuehun Manor's incident in Tiannan City. He would have waited until he was certain that there would be no room for error, and would have at least waited until more experts had gathered in Tianxiang City. After all, the time when the Xiandan had disappeared was still very close, and rashly appearing would only arouse suspicions in the hearts of those with deep thoughts. However, the Shuehun Manor's forced marriage had disrupted the young Master Jun's plan. Although the Li family wasn't an imminent threat, but it could be said that the young Master Jun's backside was on fire and could explode at any time. Therefore, Jun Mo Xie had no choice but to reveal the fake Xian core ahead of time. As for whether or not it would achieve the desired effect, he could only leave it to fate. After all, the Li family would attack the Guan family and the Jun family if he delayed any further. The 3 elders of the Silver Blizzard City had been on guard against Shi Changshao the moment he made his move. Fei Ling had pounced on him, and Lei Wu Bei's 10 disciples had swarmed around him like a swarm of locusts. The skinny 6 disciples' lightness skills were truly outstanding. He had crossed the space between the solitary eagles and Shi Changshao's gap, and had moved almost soundlessly into his bosom. This man's Xian Qi cultivation wasn't very high. In fact, he was at the Earth Xian level at best. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the weakest among the experts in the encirclement. However, his agility skills were superb and agile. His speed was so fast that even a peak Tian Xian expert wouldn't be able to match his speed. It wasn't clear how he had practiced, but the agility of his hands was unimaginable. It was probably due to his innate talent. Li Yuran had invited Lei Wu Bei's 10 disciples to descend from the mountain. Today, they were participating in a high-level battle for the Xian core. However, they weren't afraid even in the face of 2 spirit Xian great masters who were as famous as their master. In fact, they seemed to be very confident. And the reason for this was because of this man. It was because his speed was simply too fast. Even Jun Moxie had been hiding on the side. He had only vaguely seen his silhouette flash, and then it had turned into a shadow. Jun Moxie couldn't tell where his body had gone. Dozens of silhouettes attacked Solitary Eagle almost at the same time. Their strength exploded like a mountain torrent. Solitary Eagle didn't show any fear. He shouted, "Come at me!" His body slid in the air like a goshawk and streaked across the sky in a strange arc. He avoided Changxiao's attack. His hands and feet rotated in the air like a spinning top. Then he continued to chop and kick. He had single-handedly shaken all the experts except for Changxiao. Changxiao was furious. He had been the first to attack, but he was one of the 8 great masters. Moreover, his ranking was even higher than the Solitary Falcons. If he were to join forces with others to besiege the Solitary Falcon, then even if he were to kill the Solitary Falcon on the spot, the rumors would spread that he was inferior to the Solitary Falcon. Changxiao wouldn't be able to bear such a bad reputation. Besides, this was a battle between 2 great Shun Xian masters. So, why would a small fry like you need to intervene? Chapter 186. Changxiao snorted fiercely, and his deep voice reverberated through the sky. The torrential rain in the sky seemed to have been shaken by his snort, and stopped for a moment. The invisible sound waves spread out like ripples along with the torrential rain, and the people who had pounced on him from all directions felt as if their hearts had been heavily pounded by a sledgehammer. In that instant, they all felt as if they had been slowed down by half a beat. Changxiao had actually retracted the attack that had been directed towards the Solitary Eagle in an instant. The attack that had already been launched seemed to have been tied to a rope in his hands, and he could retract it at will. It was like a basin of water that had already been poured out and had suddenly flowed back just as it was about to reach the ground. Shun Xian was an expert, and once he made a move, it would be earth-shattering. However, Changxiao was able to retract his attack as he pleased. What kind of profound cultivation did he have? At this moment, everyone felt as if time had suddenly flowed backwards in that instant. This feeling was strange to the extreme. Changxiao did not stop after he retracted his attack. He used the remaining momentum of the attack to launch a second attack. This time, it was even more powerful than before, and the target had changed to the people around him. Everyone in the surroundings had fallen into the range of Changxiao's ferocious attack. In this incomparably chaotic moment, 2 figures leisurely floated over from afar, like clouds blown by the wind. They stood on the top of a large tree 40 to 50 feet away and silently looked over. Jun Moxie, who had already concealed himself, suddenly felt the Hongjun Pagoda in his mind churn, and it started to spin. With a jolt, he suddenly turned his head and looked towards the misty rain, as if he had sensed something. His heart thumped, and he thought, "They're finally here." The plan is considered half a success, but I don't know if it will. Changxiao angrily unleashed his power, and under the ferocious power, countless people were thrown out one after another. The 3 great elders saw that the situation was not good, and immediately made a decision to retreat at the same time. They retreated more than 10 feet away, and only then did they manage to stop Changxiao's attack. Everyone saw the strength of a supreme-level expert, and could not help but look at each other in shock. The other Shun Xian level expert, Fei Mengchen, was not so lucky. His original target was the solitary eagle, but Shi Changxiao's attack had also hit him, and in the blink of an eye, he had suffered 9 palms and 1 kick from Shi Changxiao. Fortunately, his strength was strong, so he was not injured even though he retreated awkwardly. He knew that there was nothing he could do against Shi Changxiao, so he could only curse as he retreated. However, the most unfortunate one was Liu Rant's 6th senior brother. That's because his speed was too fast. Everyone rushed over to take advantage of the opportunity. His speed was even faster than that of Fei Mengqian, the 3 great elders of the Silver Blizzard City, and the 4 great Shun Xian experts. The cold-blooded great master Lei Wu Bei was proud to have such a disciple. But his mistake lay in the fact that he was too fast. Shi Changxiao had arrived in front of the solitary falcon in the blink of an eye, but Shi Changxiao had suddenly gone berserk and had not only forced the 3 elders out, but had also cut off the solitary falcon's reinforcements. His speed was too fast, and he did not fall into Shi Changxiao's attack range. But it was very unfortunate that the solitary eagle was suddenly surrounded by a relatively empty space after Shi Changxiao's attack. And in this space, he was unlucky enough to face off against one of the 8 great masters, Solitary Eagle. Moreover, it was a one-on-one fight. His mind was shocked and frightened to the extreme at this time, but his hands still subconsciously maintained their previous movements. Moreover, they nimbly drilled into the lapel of the solitary eagle's clothes. It was very tragic. His speed was too fast, and it wasn't necessarily a good thing. This 6th senior brother was an excellent example. The solitary eagle had just launched his attack when he saw that everyone had been forced out by Shi Changxiao. He was feeling depressed in his heart when he suddenly saw that there was such a daring guy in front of him. And this guy was not afraid of death, and had already put his hands into the lapel of his clothes. The Xiandan would have been taken out if he had been a little bit slower. He couldn't help but feel angry and amused at the same time. An Earth Xian expert would have killed himself if he had succeeded in taking out one of the 8 great masters' belongings. After all, he would have lost a lot of face if this matter were to spread out. However, the solitary eagle would have succeeded if Shi Changxiao hadn't held back his hand a moment ago. Moreover, he would have certainly succeeded with his astonishing speed. The timing he had chosen was very appropriate and very good. However, the illustrious reputation of the solitary eagle would have gone down the drain if he had succeeded. The 8 great masters had been emptied out by an Earth Xian expert. This would have been shocking news. Therefore, the solitary eagle was furious. 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 He was an arrogant and unruly person. He had always done things his own way. When had he ever put anyone in his eyes? He had taken the cold-blooded master Lei Wu Bei's face into consideration earlier. But now, Fu K. Lei Wu Bei, the 6th brother, only knew that his agility technique was superb. In fact, it was even superior to that of Tian Xian. However, he didn't know that the solitary eagle of the prairie was also famous for his agility and speed. However, he was the first among the 8 great masters in terms of agility and speed. The 6th brother only vaguely saw solitary eagle stretch out his hand and grab his wrist. The sound of bones breaking rang out as he grabbed his wrist. Then, solitary eagle let go of his hand and grabbed his waist. Then, he raised it above his head. The 6th brother's incomparably flexible body didn't have the slightest ability to resist in the hands of solitary eagle. In fact, he had turned into a huge, human-shaped doll that could be pinched and pinched at will. The 6th brother's train of thought came to an end, and he passed out. The solitary falcon didn't seem to care about the 6th brother's life or death. Instead, he began to twirl the thin body above his head like a windmill. Whooshing sounds could be heard, and countless afterimages could be seen in the process. Then, he threw the body towards his fellow disciples. 9 people stretched out their hands to catch the thin body. But the thin body was spinning too fast, and its momentum was too fierce. So, several of the fellow disciples were smashed to the ground with a bang. They were sent flying 4 or 5 feet away. Then, they finally fell to the ground. They continued to spin like a spinning top for a while. The rainwater splashed in all directions. The surrounding Xian Qi illuminated the scene in a splendid and beautiful way. The grass under their bodies was rubbed clean. Then they stopped. Even though they were unconscious, they were still stimulated by this throw. They screamed again and were on the verge of death. Several of the fellow disciples rushed forward to check on him. Then they cried out in grief and indignation. A living man had been played like a windmill. One could well imagine the result. His arms had been broken into 70 or 80 pieces by the Xian Qi. His legs had been broken. His waist and pelvis had been shattered. His dantian had been smashed. He would have been a cripple even if he had been barely able to survive. In fact, he would have been completely paralyzed. Courage wasn't a problem. In fact, daring to try was an advantage. But it wasn't his fault if he didn't have the strength to back it up. He had rashly provoked a formidable enemy that he couldn't deal with. The sixth brother's fate was a good illustration of this. The eldest brother, Lei Jianhong, roared in grief and indignation. He stood up and angrily shouted, "Solitary Eagle, you're ruthless. From now on, the cold-blooded master's disciples will fight you to the death." The solitary eagle's belly was full of anger. So he angrily cursed, "Get lost. He has the guts to offend me. This is the reward he deserves. If he dares to provoke me again, I'll make sure that Lei Wu Bei's bloodline ends today." After being yelled at by him, the chests of the 9 martial brothers were so angry that they almost burst open. However, they forcefully endured it. Who was the solitary eagle? So, they weren't afraid of the consequences. It wouldn't be impossible for him to go berserk and kill all 10 of them if he were to go berserk. The only thing they could do right now was to endure for the time being. Then they could slowly make plans. It was true that no one could offend the great master Shen Xian's dignity. But they would have to pay the price if they had offended him. Solitary eagle, this kind of melee is too boring. It would be better for the two of us to join hands and get rid of these people. Then we'll find a quiet place to fight for 3 days and 3 nights. We'll let you have your fill. Then we'll decide who the Xiandan belongs to. What do you think? Sure, Changxiao's words made everyone's complexion turn deathly pale. The 3 elders of the Silver Blizzard City might be lucky enough to escape if the 2 great masters were to join hands. But no one else would be able to escape. Even Fei Mengqian was an expert of Shen Xian's level. After all, he was only one person, and his strength was far inferior to that of the 2 great masters. The solitary falcon laughed heartily and slowly swept his gaze around the room. Whoever his gaze landed on would involuntarily take a step back. Several people who were standing on the periphery of the room felt the solitary falcon's piercing gaze and couldn't help but feel a burst of fear in their hearts when they saw the solitary falcon's piercing gaze. Then they suddenly dropped their weapons, turned around, and ran away. Solitary eagle snorted. Then he laughed and said, "Sure, Changxiao, do you really think I'm a fool? I'll help you kill everyone here. Only you and your subordinates will be left alive. You can say that you've taken advantage of me. I'm here to fight. I'm not here for this Xiandan. And I won't help you kill anyone. Today, the Xiandan is in my hands. Whoever can hit me can take it. Who's interested in joining hands with you? Take this." Suddenly, Fei Ling dashed in front of Shi Changxiao. Then he started to throw punches and kicks at Shi Changxiao. Some quick-witted people suddenly realized that if they really followed Shi Changxiao's suggestion, the 2 great masters would join hands to kill all the experts here. But Shi Changxiao's subordinates wouldn't be harmed. And even if they were to fight one-on-one, solitary eagle's strength would be inferior to Shi Changxiao's. So the outcome of the Xiandan would be obvious. In fact, the ownership of the Xiandan might not necessarily be Shi Changxiao's real goal. After all, the people here were all top-notch experts from all over the world. In fact, there was no lack of experts in this world. If it was during normal times, any one of them would be enough to shake a region. But today they were gathered here because of the Xiandan. If such a large number of experts were to be killed, it would be a great benefit to the God-bestowed empire that Shi Changxiao belonged to. And Shi Changxiao was able to come up with such a vicious plan in such a short period of time. He wanted to use the hands of solitary eagle to kill everyone here. He was truly worthy of his title as the God-bestowed Imperial Preceptor. The college entrance examination has begun. I sincerely wish my brothers and sisters that each and every one of you will be able to get good results. I wish that each and every one of you will be admitted to the university of your dreams. And from now on, your life will begin. Work hard, my brothers, my sisters. I look forward to your comments after the college entrance examination. Tell me about your happiness. Let me share the joy of your success. Let me be proud of my brothers and sisters. Chapter 187. Shi Xiao didn't get angry when he realized that the solitary falcon had seen through his thoughts. Instead of getting angry, he turned around to dodge the attack and was just about to say something when he saw the solitary falcon charging towards the Silver Blizzard City's three elders. The solitary falcon's silhouette flashed as he charged towards the Silver Blizzard City's three elders. Then, the solitary falcon and Fei Ming Chun exchanged 3 blows in a flash. Then, the solitary falcon let out a loud and crisp sound as he slapped each of Lei Wu Bei's 9 disciples. Then, the solitary falcon swept past the Sky Xian experts that Shi Xiao had brought with him. Solitary Eagle took advantage of this opportunity to attack more than 21st-rate experts in the blink of an eye. This was his peerless agility technique, the 13 transformations of the Snow Eagle. His attacks were swift and fierce, and the 6th brother couldn't compare with them. This was the speed of a great master, Shun Xian. Jun Moxie was hiding in the dark. He was cheering loudly in his heart. He deserves to be called the Divine Eagle of the Prairie. He's very sharp. He's reckless and impetuous. It's easy for him to fall into someone else's trap. But his intentions are so clear. He's worthy of his reputation as a great master. It's not in vain that I've spent so much effort to frame him. Solitary Eagle's irascible actions had undoubtedly aroused everyone's anger. After all, not everyone could understand the twists and turns of the situation. Even those who could understand the subtleties of the situation wanted to take a gamble. After all, obtaining the Xian Dan was tantamount to obtaining the opportunity to ascend to the heavens in a single bound. Everyone's eyes turned red as they pounced on him. Even if it's not for the Xian Dan, it's for revenge. Even if it's not for revenge, it's for the Xian Dan. Solitary Eagle's expression became more and more excited. He roared and laughed as he displayed his superb agility. He weaved and weaved as he fought with all the experts. A shadow flashed, and Shi Xiao finally joined the fray. He attacked the solitary falcon with one hand and attacked the 3 elders of the Silver Blizzard City with the other. The 5 elders then split up into 3 groups and began to engage in a melee with each of them fighting 2 enemies at the same time. Shi Xiao's thoughts were deep, and he had already figured out that only the solitary falcon or the 3 elders could contend against him. So, he would still have a big advantage if he could defeat either one of them. So, he decided to go all out. Haha, interesting. Fei Mingchen laughed loudly. He punched Solitary Eagle's back and kicked Shi Xiao's waist. Both of them flashed. Fei Mingchen let out a long roar as he entered the fray. He wanted to kill the 3 elders. Fei Mingchen was an imperial advisor. How could his thoughts be ordinary? He had also figured out the situation in an instant. He knew that he couldn't allow Shi Xiao to defeat any one of them. Otherwise, the situation would become one-sided. However, his strength was far inferior to the other 3. He could only balance the 3 sides and let this fight drag on for as long as possible. The 6 supreme divine Xian experts were entangled in a melee battle, causing the sky to darken and the earth to darken. Of these 6 people, apart from the 3 elders of the Silver Blizzard City, each had their own plans. It could be said that they were surrounded by enemies on all sides. No matter who it was, they could attack with their swords at any time. Their eyes were on the 4 sides, and their ears were on the lookout for any openings, and they would strike whenever there was a surprise attack. The 6 great masters Shen Xian had been trying their best to control the extent of their attacks. After all, if Shun Xian's power were to be fully unleashed, nothing would be left in the vicinity. Even Shi Xiao was no exception. Although he wanted to kill all the experts here, he still had to worry about his subordinates. After all, if he lost 6 first-class Xian-Qi experts, it would not be worth it. However, the battle was getting more and more intense. The power of their attacks was gradually being unleashed, and there were signs of it going out of control. A shadow flashed, and Solitary Eagle shot out. He hit an expert who was watching the fight. With a swoosh sound, he returned to continue the fight. He laughed loudly. This was Solitary Eagle's superb agility. He was able to pull out of Shun Xian's melee at any time. But no one except Solitary Eagle could pull off such a peerless agility. Even Chang Xiao couldn't do it. Lei Jianhong and his fellow disciples were watching the fight with rapt attention. Suddenly, one of the experts beside him was knocked down by the solitary falcon. Lei Jianhong was startled and quickly retreated 2 steps in order to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. However, he didn't have enough time to dodge and received a solid slap to the face. He couldn't help but be startled, angry, and furious. Solitary Eagle had already retreated by this time. So, who was the one who had attacked him? Several experts turned their heads to look at the source of the attack. Lei Jianhong had just retreated when a man fell down beside him. That man's companion rushed forward to support him. However, Lei Jianhong recognized him as the culprit who had slapped him. Lei Jianhong bellowed and punched and kicked that man. That man was one of Chang Xiao's subordinates. He was considered a high and mighty figure in the Xinxiai Empire. So, how could he not be angry when Lei Jianhong had suddenly attacked him? He whistled, and 5 or 6 Tianxian experts rushed over. Lei Jianhong's 9 fellow disciples didn't know what was going on, but they knew that they would suffer if they didn't act quickly. In fact, their lives might even be in danger. After all, they were besieged by several Tianxian experts. So, they didn't hesitate any longer. They pulled out their swords and swarmed forward. The one who had slapped Lei Jianhong in the dark was none other than Jun Moxie and Jun Daxiao. Jun Daxiao had used the yin-yang escape technique. His whole body was sometimes in the water and sometimes in the soil. He had come and gone like a ghost. Moreover, the sky was filled with the colorful lights of the Xian-Qi, and the rain hadn't stopped yet. So, no one had noticed Jun Moxie's movements. Jun Daxiao was the first one who couldn't bear Lei Jianhong's arrogance. So he slapped him twice in the face. Thus, he easily and happily provoked a fight between the 2 groups of people. The target had already appeared. Jun Moxie's next step was to make the situation more chaotic. The more people died, the better. And the weaker the forces of each party, the better. The more people fought, the easier it was for them to fall into Lei Jian's trap. So, their anger grew bigger and bigger. Everyone had been trying to conserve their strength in the beginning. Then, they would fight over the Xiandan. But they were fighting with all their strength now. The ear-piercing sounds of swords clashing against each other were constantly accompanied by blood-curdling screams and groans. The fight had officially entered the white-hot stage with the first spurt of blood. Roar! In the end, the solitary falcon was the one who had suffered the most. In fact, the solitary falcon felt that this fight was the most satisfying he had ever fought in his life, but it was also the most strenuous he had ever fought in his life. His agility was undoubtedly the best, but his strength wasn't. Solitary Eagle spread out his arms along with this roar. The powerful aura of a supreme martial artist surged out crazily. It rolled in all directions like raging waves. The eagle god of the prairie, one of the 8 great supreme martial artists, was finally going to attack with all his strength. Chang Xiao let out a long and loud laugh. He soared into the sky. He seemed to be standing steadily in the sky amidst the lightning and thunder. His body flashed, and countless shadows appeared. His aura was also released without any concealment. It resisted the raging aura of Solitary Eagle. Fei Mengqian and the 3 great elders flew back at the same time. At this moment, the difference between the strengths of the 6 people could be seen. The powerful auras of the 2 supreme martial artists collided with each other like lightning. There was a loud bang. It seemed as if the entire space had been shattered. The heavy rain that had been falling from the sky stopped falling. Instead, it rose up into the sky. Suddenly, the sky turned into a dreamy and cruel scene. All the houses within a radius of 200 feet collapsed at the same time. The grass on the ground flew up along with their roots. All the trees, regardless of their thickness, were snapped and shot in all directions. However, in the face of such power, everyone present was suddenly stunned. Even the two supreme martial artists, who were about to go all out in the battle, were dumbfounded. That was because something very strange had happened. At the moment when a big tree was snapped, everyone could clearly hear the words of the big tree. 2 words. They were short and forceful. The voice was sonorous and sonorous. F***. The tree can actually speak? Then, the tree said another sentence. If you want to fight, then fight. How can a tree get in your way? It's the voice of that black-robed man. The third elder blurted out in surprise. So that guy was hiding there. No wonder we couldn't find him. The two supreme martial artists, Shi Changshao and Solitary Eagle, knew that something strange was going on. They pounced on the tree at the same time. With a loud bang, they lifted the thick tree trunk into the sky. Then, it silently turned into dust. The two of them had used their force at the same time. However, they were disappointed. The tree didn't speak again. The tree was still a tree. It had been a tree earlier. Now it was just with dust. But they were sure that there was no one there. The two supreme martial artists felt that they had lost face. They had let someone slip away right under their noses. They looked at each other. Then, they started to fight again. The one who was hiding on the big tree was naturally Jun Dashao. He was able to escape from the joint attack of the two supreme martial artists. After all, only he, Lord Dashao, could have such a magical power. He was indeed very powerful. How could an ordinary Xian-Qi cultivator have such a skill? Jun Dashao had been hiding on the tree trunk. He was watching the fight in high spirits. He was analyzing the advantages and disadvantages of each move. After that, he would verify them in his mind. He was feeling carefree and happy. So, why did the tree trunk suddenly snap? The eldest young master was hidden on the tree trunk. Of course, he would be affected when the tree broke. He felt as if his waist was about to snap, and the pain was unbearable. He forcefully restrained himself from screaming, but he was still very angry at this unexpected calamity, so he couldn't help but curse. After he finished cursing, he felt that something was wrong. So, he drilled back into the ground. Once Shun Xian started to fight, they didn't have any scruples anymore. So, they used their trump cards and attacked each other fiercely. Solitary Eagle fought with Shi Changshao first. Then, he withstood the joint attack of the three supreme martial artists. Finally, he couldn't bear it anymore. He rolled his eyes. He had cultivated for almost 100 years. So, he took out the Xian Dan from his bosom. He shouted, "I don't want this broken toy anymore." He shook his hand. The Xian Dan flew toward Fei Mengqian. Chapter 188. Fei Mengqian immediately felt that something was wrong. She secretly blamed herself for being blinded by greed. The solitary eagle was obviously using her to cross the bridge. The 5 great masters behind her would have attacked her if she hadn't changed her stance. She wasn't a freak like the solitary eagle. Even if she didn't die, she would be seriously injured. She made a prompt decision as she thought of this. She pushed the Xian Dan away and said coldly, "I don't want it either." The Xian Dan changed its direction and flew towards the 3 elders of the Silver City. Fei Mengqian and the solitary eagle were both very shrewd. So, neither of them would throw the Xian Dan in the direction of Shi Changshao. Shi Changshao would have kept the Xian Dan and then run away. His goal was different from the solitary eagle's. His goal was to get the Xian Dan, and there was no one present who could stop him. The solitary eagle also had the ability to do so, but he wouldn't run away. After all, he had come here to fight. For a time, the Xian core flew back and forth in the air, flying here and there. Unexpectedly, no one dared to rashly catch it, because the Xian Dan wasn't a treasure anymore. Instead, it was a Yama's command that could summon the god of death. No matter which of them received the Xian core, they would definitely be besieged by the others. Shi Changshao would have rushed in that direction. The solitary eagle would have laughed and stopped him. But the two great masters would have joined forces to put pressure on the others. Solitary Eagle was fighting to his heart's content. He was shouting and yelling. Sure, Changxiao's face had turned black. Sure, Changxiao's movements were extraordinary. But he couldn't be compared with the Solitary Eagle. Moreover, he couldn't defeat the Solitary Eagle in a few moves. So, he could only worry. The rest of the people were panting, and their faces were pale. Even Fei Mengqian couldn't take it anymore. Just like that, the Xian Dan glided back and forth freely in the air for a long time. It didn't land on the ground even once, nor did it fall into anyone's hands for more than a second. If a modern volleyball player were to see such a superb levitation technique, they would definitely prostrate themselves in admiration. Under Solitary Eagle's deliberate pranks and Jun Moxie's sneaky tricks, there were finally casualties in the large circle of people surrounding them. Moreover, there were quite a number of casualties. Shi Changxiao had only moved his hands twice, and a large number of people had fallen like wheat. The moment Xian Dan flew out of Solitary Eagle's hand, Jun Moxie flew out in stealth mode. Between the group of Shun Xian and Tian Xian, it was like he was dancing on a steel wire on a cliff. Although he was in stealth mode, his body was real. If any of these experts touched him lightly, his life would be in danger. After all, Jun Daxiao's current strength was still very weak. However, he had no choice but to continue dancing. This was because he needed to control the landing point of the Xian Dan at the most crucial moment. First, he needed to ensure that the Xian Dan didn't fall into the hands of the undying master, Shi Changxiao. Otherwise, the plan would be ruined. Secondly, the other imperial advisor, Fei Mengqian, couldn't die. If he died, the consequences would be too severe. Thirdly, he needed to ensure that Solitary Eagle could do everything he could. The foreign affairs of the Tianxiang Empire had been peaceful for the past few years, but the young Master Jun had hoped that the Tianxiang Empire would still have a strong opponent to spy on them. Fei Mengqian and Shi Changxiao were the two great imperial advisors of the Tianxiang Empire, and could be said to be the cornerstones of the Tianxiang Empire. Therefore, the Jun family still needed to rely on the pressure of the enemy to ensure that the Jun family, a military family, could thrive. When the birds are gone, the good bough is hidden. But what if the birds are not gone? The good bough would be guaranteed to be in its sharpest state. Therefore, Jun Daxiao had shamefully played the role of a half-traitor at this moment. Therefore, Jun Moxie would do his utmost to push the Xian Dan towards the three elders of the Silver Blizzard City and Lei Wu Bei's 9 disciples, as long as the opportunity presented itself. The effect was very, 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 very obvious. The three elders were thrown into confusion under Jun Moxie's provocation. Their foreheads were full of bumps, especially the 6th and 9th elders who had intercepted Shi Changxiao. They had been attacked by the two great masters, and blood had started to drip from the corners of their mouths. As for Lei Wu Bei's 9 disciples, they were already fighting with the experts under Shi Changxiao's command. Then, Jun Moxie had plotted to push the Xian Dan towards them 4 or 5 times. However, these people hadn't changed their minds. They had wanted to catch the Xian Dan and then escape with all their might. Therefore, they had been attacked twice by Shi Changxiao and Solitary Eagle. Therefore, they had lost their fighting strength. The Solitary Eagle and Shi Changxiao had the best eyesight when they saw the Xian Dan's inexplicable movements in the air. However, no one had ever been able to become invisible in the Xian continent for tens of millions of years. Therefore, the two of them hadn't thought much about it. They had assumed that the Xian Dan had been affected by someone else's qi. Therefore, they hadn't paid much attention to it, even though they had found it strange. They didn't need to worry about it, as long as it didn't fall into someone else's hands. Solitary Eagle was fighting to his heart's content. Jun Moxie was also playing to his heart's content. However, 2 black-clothed men were standing on top of a big tree several dozen feet away from the scene. Their eagle-like eyes were looking in their direction. However, their eyes were full of doubt. "Third brother, look at that Xian Dan. I've been looking at it for a long time. The purity of its spirit energy is top-notch. But why do I feel that something is wrong?" A black-clothed man with thick eyebrows blinked his eyes. "It's as if I found a dragon saliva fruit. Why don't one take a bite?" I've seen many Xiandan in the past, but I've never felt this way. He smacked his lips as he spoke. There's indeed something wrong. It doesn't seem to be the energy of the Xiandan, but this energy is more. The third brother didn't say what it was. He just shook his head thoughtfully. This energy seems to be similar to the energy of the Heaven's Punishment Cave, but it's more attractive than the Heaven's Punishment Cave. We must get this Xiandan no matter what. Otherwise, our big brother, the third brother, shuddered. He didn't finish his sentence. Third brother, it's just the two of us. Don't mention our big brother. I get chills just thinking about him. The black-clothed man with thick eyebrows shuddered. He turned around sneakily. It seemed as if he was afraid that the big brother would suddenly appear behind him. Our big brother doesn't have time to deal with you. Ever since second brother ran away, our big brother has been angry. He's been looking for second brother all these years. If second brother gets caught by our big brother, ha ha ha. The third brother laughed gloatingly. It seemed as if he was looking forward to the second brother getting caught and beaten up by the big brother. Second brother, what's the point of following that person? Can he be better than us brothers, living a free and unfettered life? I really don't understand. The black-clothed man with thick eyebrows shook his head. If I see him, I'll slap him too. Even if I don't slap him, I'll tear that person apart. You? If you meet second brother alone, I think second brother will throw you down from the sky. The third brother looked at him disdainfully. You're a brainless guy. Second brother will slap you with his claws. You might not even be a match for that person, let alone him. Are you still not convinced? His claws are indeed powerful, but I'm not convinced by that person, even though he's quite strong. The black-clothed man with thick eyebrows humphed. He wasn't convinced, but he still respected the facts. Pay attention. Shi Changshao is the strongest. He's going to get the Xiandan. Get ready to take action and get the Xiandan. The third brother said hastily. Both of them became alert at the same time. Suddenly, a whirlwind-like energy started to swirl under their feet. Slowly, the rain stopped falling from the sky. Instead, it condensed into a huge crystal ball under their feet. It was incomparably magnificent, but no one, including the two supreme martial artists, Shi Changshao and the solitary eagle, noticed this. Could it be that these two people are actually not weaker than the 8 great martial artists? Otherwise, how could Shi Changshao and the solitary eagle miss them with their Xian Qi and strong divine sense? Shi Changshao let out a long whistle. He activated his Xian Qi without hesitation. He dashed towards the Xiandan like a meteor. At this moment, the Xiandan was the closest to him, but the solitary eagle was still entangled with Fei Mengqian. The opportunity was fleeting. The other 5 Xian experts were aware of this, but they couldn't stop it. The 3rd, 6th, and 9th elders of the Silver Blizzard City had jointly withstood Shi Changshao's attack. They were lucky enough to survive, but they had used up a lot of their Xian Qi, so they couldn't stop it even if they wanted to. Fei Mengqian didn't want the Xiandan to fall into Shi Changshao's hands, but she was only slightly stronger than the 3rd elder. Compared to the 8 great martial artists, there was a huge gap. So, she had participated in this battle with the intention of balancing all sides. Moreover, she was entangled with the solitary eagle. So, she was afraid that her life would be in danger. Although the Xiandan was good, she needed to be alive to enjoy it. So, she could only watch helplessly. But there was still one person who could stop Shi Changshao from getting the Xiandan, and that was the solitary eagle. Solitary eagle's lightness skill was second to none among the 8 great martial artists. So, even if Shi Changshao was in front of him, solitary eagle would still have the opportunity to get the Xiandan first. Even if he couldn't get the Xiandan before Shi Changshao, as long as he attacked Shi Changshao wouldn't be willing to take a hit. So, he would fight desperately for the Xiandan. It was a pity that solitary eagle's goal was not to get the Xiandan. Moreover, he was satisfied with the battle and had the intention to retreat. So, he might as well stop Fei Mengqian and let Shi Changshao get the Xiandan. Then, he would end the battle. Moreover, he could do Shi Changshao a favor. Being able to let someone of the same level owe him a favor was a very worthwhile deal. Solitary Eagle understood his intention, and so did Shi Changshao. That was why he would go all out to get the Xiandan. Although there were many people present, as long as the Solitary Eagle didn't cause any trouble, no one could stop him from getting the Xiandan. He waved his right hand and released a strong suction force. The Xiandan that he yearned for even in his dreams flew towards his hand automatically. It was about to fall into his hand. Shi Changshao flew with all his strength, and the Xiandan slowly approached him. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. This supreme martial artist of life and death suddenly felt a slight excitement that he hadn't felt for many years. Level 9 Peak Xiandan. Finally, I'm going to get it. Chapter 189. Shi Changshao had already decided that as soon as the Xiandan was in his hands, he would immediately go far away. Now that his cultivation had reached the great master Xinxian, he had been stuck in a bottleneck for many years. However, he believed that as long as he used the Xiandan to break through the bottleneck, he would be able to reach new heights. Shi Changshao was confident that he would be able to fight against the great master Mo Tian at that time. In fact, he might even be able to challenge the great master Li Ju Tian. Therefore, he would be able to rise to the top of the 8 great masters. If he was successful, Shi Changshao would be on the same level as Yun Bichun. He would be at the top of the world. Even the Shun Ci Empire would rise in the Xian continent. They would become the top of the continent. Because among the 8 great masters, only Shi Changshao belonged to his own country. Shi Changshao's blood couldn't help but boil as he thought about this. This was also the main reason why Shi Changshao didn't hesitate to owe the Solitary Eagle a big favor. The 3rd, 6th, and 9th elders were experienced, and couldn't help but be alarmed when they saw that the Solitary Eagle didn't try to stop Shi Changshao. They raised their Xian Qi and attacked Shi Changshao with all their might. However, Shi Changshao's success was imminent, and he didn't care about them. He wanted to take the Xiandan into his hands. The 3 elders' Xian Qi had already been dispersed by him, and it would be difficult for them to recover their Xian Qi in a short period of time. As for the others, it was even more difficult for them to enter his eyes. It seemed that the situation was irreversible. Hitman Jun was also at his wit's end. His yin-yang escape was extremely mysterious, and even the likes of Shi Changshao and the Solitary Eagle couldn't detect his presence. However, his body was still there, and if he rashly entered the range of Shi Changshao's aura, he would be exposed at any time. After all, Jun Dashao's cultivation was still too weak. Why haven't those two made a move yet? Jun Moxie was a little angry in his heart. He wanted to pull their ears and scold them. Jun Dashao had forgotten that those two were not his subordinates. Could it be that this was the final move? Jun Dashao couldn't help but mutter in his heart. If it didn't work, then he could only detonate his final move. Unexpectedly, at this moment, another shocking change occurred. How could such a 9th-grade pill fall into your hands? A deep voice boomed. Coincidentally, a thunderclap resounded in the sky at the same time. However, this thunderclap actually overshadowed the thunderclaps in the sky. The vast world was filled with the booming sound of this shout. It came from everyone's ears, but seemed to come from the bottom of their hearts, from the depths of their souls. Following this shout, 2 black-clothed figures descended at an astonishing speed that seemed to surpass lightning. One of them was tall and sturdy, extremely burly. Even Dugu Wudi's bear-like figure would pale in comparison in front of him. He stood in front of the 3 elders, as well as the Solitary Eagle, Fei Mengchen, and the others. He didn't even greet them as he raised his huge fist and ferociously sent a punch towards each of them. The other person's clothes fluttered in the air like a feather as he landed in front of Shi Changshao. The Xiandan had been absorbed by Shi Changshao's Xian Qi and had been casually caught by his hand. It seemed as if the Xiandan had automatically flown into his hand. Then, his other hand slowly stretched out in a calm and dignified manner and collided with Shi Changshao's heavy palm strike. A loud bang was heard, and Shi Changshao groaned. He staggered twice in the air and fell diagonally. The black-clothed man was also struck by Shi Changshao's powerful palm strike and somersaulted in the air. He also groaned, and his body suddenly changed direction in midair and flew away at an extremely fast speed. The great master of life and death, Shi Changshao, had been repelled by his palm strike. Success! Let's go! Jun Moxie was startled by the unforeseen event at this moment. His mind turned at lightning speed, and he used his spirit sense to stimulate the Hong Jun Pagoda. The Hong Jun Pagoda rotated with a schwa sound, and a rich spiritual energy gushed out. Then, it was withdrawn as soon as it came into contact with the spiritual energy. Everything around him returned to normal. Jun Dashao's actions were still under the effect of the yin-yang escape technique. Even the brilliant experts like Shi Changshao, Solitary Eagle, and the others hadn't been aware of it. However, the black-clothed man suddenly stopped in the air the moment Jun Moxie activated the Hong Jun Pagoda. He seemed to have turned his head, and his eyes sparkled with desire. However, his speed didn't slow down. Even the bear-like, brawny man's body trembled the moment the Hong Jun Pagoda was activated. He raised his eyes and looked around. The black-clothed man with thick eyebrows was having a great time fighting with the other great masters, Shun Xian. He didn't even try to dodge or evade. Instead, he punched and kicked him. His sturdy body was punched dozens of times by the other great masters. Fei Mengqian and the third elder were also punched once or twice by him. Those who were hit by one or two of the black-clothed man's moves almost had to throw away their pride and cry out twice to relieve the pain in their bodies. However, the black-clothed man with thick eyebrows was exchanging punches for punches. Naturally, the number of moves he received was several times more than that of the third elder and the others. However, he still acted as if nothing had happened to him, even though he had received so many heavy punches and kicks. When he heard the other black-clothed man's order to retreat, he actually puffed out his chest like a raging bull and charged forward forcefully. Then, he continued to receive punches all the way. Everyone attacked at the same time. Everyone was confident that as long as this man dodged any of their attacks, they would be able to make him stay here forever. However, something happened that left everyone dumbfounded. The punches and kicks landed on the black-clothed man's body. The sound of the punches and kicks was so loud that even the people standing at the side could feel it. However, this guy didn't seem to care at all. It was only when he had run out of the crowd's encirclement that he let out a loud roar. Then he twisted his buttocks and spat out a mouthful of blood. Then he continued to run wildly, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. Solitary Eagle, Fei Mengqian, and the other two great elders looked at each other in shock. This person's Xianqi cultivation level was extremely high and should have reached the level of Shun Xian. Although it was quite rare for him to have such a cultivation level, he was still no match for Solitary Eagle, even though he was slightly higher than Fei Mengqian. This was something that everyone present could clearly feel. However, even the leader of the 8 great elders, Yunbi Chun, would not dare to let himself be beaten up by 5 great elders, Shun Xian, and forcefully charge out. Even though these few great elders of Shun Xian had expended a lot of their combat power, they still represented the peak of Xianqi cultivation. Great Elder, Shun Xian. Even people of the same level might not dare to take a palm strike from a great elder with all their might. Not to mention the fact that there were so many of them ganging up on him, and each of them was fighting with all their might. This person had suffered so many blows, but he still managed to charge out alive, and the price he had to pay was just a mouthful of blood. Before he spat out the blood, he was still full of energy and cursed with his teeth white. Even after he spat out the blood, he was still able to increase his speed. What was going on? This was too strange. The great elder, Shi Changshao, who had been defeated at the most crucial moment, was undoubtedly the most depressed one, and also the one who was extremely angry. But at the same time, his heart was filled with endless doubts. In this world, there were very few people who could break through his Xianqi field and snatch away the Xiandan, and even fight with him with a palm strike. Who was this person? The only thing he could be sure of was that this person was definitely not one of the 8 great masters that he was familiar with. However, apart from the experts of the 8 great masters, was there anyone else who could pull a tooth out of the tiger's mouth? While Shi Changshao was furious, he also realized that the person who snatched the Xian Dan had an accomplice, so he naturally wanted to capture that person. But when he turned around, he saw the scene of that person madly rushing out while being beaten all the way. He couldn't help but open his mouth in surprise. This was too unimaginable. 2 great elders, 4 Shan Xian level experts, and more than 20 Tian Xian level experts formed an encirclement, but the Xian Dan was snatched away by someone so easily. Who would believe this? In the end, everyone ended up with nothing, and it was such a shameful thing. But now, everyone had no time to be ashamed, and all of them were shocked speechless because of this bizarre scene. This kind of ability to resist attacks was unheard of and had never been seen before. Even the number 1 great elder in the Shan Xian realm, Yin Bi Chun, wouldn't be able to do this. Oh my god, what kind of monster is this? A seriously injured Earth Xian expert sat on the ground in the periphery. His mouth was wide open like a startled hippopotamus, and he allowed the torrential rain to pour into his mouth, but he didn't seem to notice it. This was a very ordinary sentence of surprise, but this sentence made Shi Changshao and the solitary eagle stop in their tracks. The two looked at each other, and everyone could see that the eyes of these 2 experts were filled with seriousness, understanding, and a trace of fear. Fei Mengqian slowly walked to the side of the 2 experts and asked with a heavy face, "Could it be them?" Her voice wasn't as steady as it used to be when she said these words, and had become somewhat sharp. The solitary eagle snorted, and Shi Changshao also snorted. The faces of these 2 experts had turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Fei Mengqian's complexion changed, and she solemnly looked in the direction that the 2 experts had left in, and her face couldn't help but turn black as well. She had become the 3rd person to become the bottom of the pot. The 3 elders of the Silver Blizzard City were gasping for breath, and looked at each other with eyes full of horror. The 6th elder wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and cried out involuntarily, "It's actually the heavens! Heavens my ass!" The 3rd elder reprimanded him in a bad mood. "Do you think you're so knowledgeable? Haven't you lost enough face? Haven't you caused enough trouble?" He then sighed and said, "Since they've made their move, then it's not an injustice to fall into this trap. We should also tidy up a bit and accompany the little princess on her travels. Let's treat this as a distraction. Don't tell me that they're going to make a comeback again." Shi Changshao frowned and muttered to himself in bewilderment. He stretched out his hands and looked at his palms. There were 4 deep red marks on them. His hands would have been crippled if it weren't for the protection of his Xian Qi. This didn't seem like a palm strike from a human, but more like a ferocious hoof of a wild beast. Shi Changshao flexed his fingers and said with a sigh of relief, "The one who attacked me should be the legendary 3rd brother, right?" There was a trace of fear in his voice. Chapter 190. What? You're not convinced? Then you can catch up with them and take back the Xian Dan. Only you have the guts to do so. Solitary Eagle smiled, taking pleasure in other people's misfortune. "Oh, that's right. Maybe the great Master Shi will come across the eldest brother. Then he'll be able to leave his name in the annals of history." Shi Changshao tensed up as soon as he heard the word eldest brother. He flew into a rage and fiercely roared, "Shut your eagle mouth. You'll die if you don't say a few words." It must be known that Shi Changshao was a great master of the mysterious arts. He was also one of the 8 great masters. So, no one could have imagined that he would suddenly burst into foul language. Moreover, he was cursing another great master. This curse caused everyone to raise their eyebrows. Could it be that the flames of war that had just subsided be reignited? Contrary to everyone's expectations, the flames of war didn't reignite. Shi Changzhao's words would have provoked a strong reaction from the solitary falcon in the past, and the 2 of them would have immediately engaged in a fierce battle. But this time, the solitary falcon didn't get angry at all, and instead started to laugh heartily. In fact, it seemed as if he was laughing to his heart's content. The remaining people stood there thoughtfully. It was hard to tell what they were thinking, but there wasn't much disappointment on their faces. In fact, they were even taking pleasure in other people's misfortune. Even the 8 great masters have fallen. So what about me? We won't lose face. The other great master's disciple, Lei Jianhong, and his fellow disciples were gathered under a big tree. On one hand, they were sheltering from the rain. On the other hand, they were planning to temporarily avoid the sharp edge. Among the 10 people, 6 were already injured. Their bloodstains were everywhere. The 6th disciple was seriously injured. In fact, he was still in a coma. The Shin core is gone. How do you calculate it? Brotherly will certainly be very disappointed. Lei Jianhong sighed and said, "Who would have thought that such a strong force like ours would be useless in this fight? There's nothing we can do about it. Who would have thought that there would actually be 2 great supreme beings here at the same time? Other than Master personally taking action, I believe there's absolutely no way to change this result. Eldest senior brother, you don't have to worry about it." The young woman behind him slowly said, "Besides, even the 2 great masters and the Silver Blizzard City have been fooled. So what about us?" She had clearly lowered her voice as she said this. "But 6th junior brother looks like this now. Junior brotherly still wants him to check on June Moxie's movements. What should we do?" Lei Jianhong frowned as he looked at the unconscious junior brother in front of him. There was a look of heartache on his face, and his mind was in a mess. "We can only ask Junior Brotherly to find another capable person. The Grand Preceptor's residence is filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. It shouldn't be a difficult matter to find someone else," the woman said. "If there really isn't a suitable person, then I'll be in charge. That's the only way." Lei Jianhong sighed and frowned. "In fact, I'm most interested in finding out who the 2 people who obtained Xiandan are. How can they be so valiant? I believe that the number of people with such cultivation can be counted on one's fingers. How come I don't have any impression of them? What's even more strange is that Solitary Eagle and Shi Changshao didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. So, why didn't they pursue them? Solitary Eagle didn't pursue them. After all, his original intention wasn't to obtain the Xiandan. But Shi Changshao didn't pursue them. This is very puzzling. If he didn't really want to obtain the Xiandan, then why did he fight to the death? Senior brother is right. I believe that the strength of those 2 people is inferior to that of Solitary Eagle and Shi Changshao. But they're certainly on the same level as Shun Xian. We may not know such experts, but we certainly haven't heard of them. Their origins are truly unimaginable." The woman's willowy eyebrows wrinkled as she doubtfully said, "But why does it seem that Shi Changshao is afraid of these 2 people? Perhaps there's someone behind them that Shi Changshao can't afford to provoke? Is there really someone in this world that the 8 great masters don't dare to provoke?" Lei Jianhong frowned. Naturally, none of his fellow disciples present could answer this question. However, his words had already attracted the attention of Jun Moxie. He had been hiding nearby when he had heard that they were Li Yuren's fellow disciples. Jun Dashao's hands had already been itching to get rid of them, and he had also heard that Li Yuren had ordered them to keep an eye on him. Jun Dashao couldn't help but feel his murderous intent overflowing. The rain had finally subsided a little. "Imperial Tutor Shi, Solitary Eagle, we have offended the Silver Blizzard City today. If we are fated to meet again, we 3 brothers will prepare some fragrant tea as an apology." The 3rd elder took a step forward and said in a clear voice, "We 3 brothers will take our leave if the 2 great masters don't have anything else to say." The shadows of people swayed in the distance as he spoke. Several groups of people had already left one after another. It could be seen that these people belonged to the major families of the city. In fact, some of them were even part of the army. These people were the latecomers and had been lying in wait. It was obvious that Xiandan was hopeless. They had been drenched in the rain for half a night in vain. So, they returned home one after another. Shi Changshao crossed his hands behind his back. He didn't even look at those people who had left. He indifferently said, "Every man for himself, and the heavens will destroy him. You 3 elders don't need to take it to heart. The Silver Blizzard City's snow tea is of the highest quality. Maybe we'll have a cup of it someday." The 3 of them chuckled and flew up to join the other four. Then they slowly walked away. A long and loud whistle was heard. It was the solitary eagle. He flew away like a divine eagle. He didn't even greet them. In fact, he was only a small black dot in the distance. His voice could be heard from afar. The Silver Blizzard City's people are trying to fool me with a cup of tea. I'm not happy. Tell Han Feng Shui that I'll come and find him. Lei Wu Bei's disciples. I'll be waiting for him to come and cause trouble for me. His voice was still echoing in the air, but he had already disappeared without a trace. Solitary Eagle, pay attention to any news from that side, Shi Changshao hurriedly said. He didn't know if the solitary eagle had heard him, but no sound came back. Fei Mingchen chuckled and waved her hand. Then she leisurely walked away. He had traveled thousands of miles from the Yutang Empire to Tianxiang City. One of the main reasons he had come here was to find the Xiandan. But the Xiandan had disappeared, and it seemed as if he didn't care about it all. He had left in a carefree manner. He had lived up to his reputation as a wise man. Shi Changshao looked up to the sky and sighed. He thought, I'll have to find Yunbi Chun and lead Zhu Tian to discuss countermeasures if they're the ones who have left. The more he thought about it, the more worried he became. And the more he thought about it, the Xiandan had almost been within his reach. But it had been gone, and he couldn't help but feel disappointed and frustrated. Sovereign, a Tianxian expert, stood respectfully in front of Shi Changshao. You go back to the heavenly bestowment city. There's no need for you here. This old man has something to do. I'll return in a moment. Shi Changshao pondered for a long time. Then he said, Yes. The six respectfully accepted the order. Then 4 of them helped the 2 injured men up. They fiercely glared at Lei Wu Bei's disciples. Then they saluted to bid farewell to Shi Changshao and disappeared into the heavy curtain of rain. Shi Changshao clasped his hands behind his back. He slowly paced a few steps in the field. His thin figure seemed lonely in the heavy rain. He looked desolate and helpless. He suddenly sighed and waved his hand. A white light shot out from his hand and fell into Lei Jianhong's hand. Shi Changshao's body flashed a few times. The first time he flashed, he was already 30 meters away. The next time he flashed, his silhouette had become blurred and then disappeared. Lei Jianhong focused his eyes and saw a small jade bottle in his hand. A few words were written on its surface. Resurrection liquid. He couldn't help but feel overjoyed. He was about to open his mouth to express his gratitude when Shi Changshao disappeared without a trace. This resurrection liquid was Shi Changshao's secret medicine. It might not be able to bring the dead back to life, but it was a miraculous medicine. The 6th brother's Dantian would have been damaged, and he would have been crippled. But he would have been able to preserve his life with this medicine. Lei Jianhong hastily called out to his fellow disciples. They carefully lifted the unconscious 6th brother's body and were about to open the jade bottle. Suddenly, a great sense of foreboding arose in their hearts. Lei Jianhong was Lei Wu Bei's first disciple. His body flashed, and he narrowly avoided the fatal blow. Several pitiful screams echoed. The 4 people who had gathered together started to bleed from their noses and mouths. They fell forward without uttering a single sound. Each of them had a dainty throwing knife inserted deep into their backs. Only the handle of the knife was left exposed. It seemed that the knives had pierced their hearts. 1 knife to take their lives, 1 knife to end their lives. It was no wonder that the 4 of them had died without uttering a single sound. 3 Earth Xian experts and a junior disciple of Tian Xian had lost their lives at the same time. Brother, Lei Jianhong stretched out his hand to check their breathing. His body suddenly stiffened. His eyes widened, and he frantically jumped up. Who is it? Who is it? Come out now. You're hiding in the dark. What kind of son of a bitch is this? Come out and fight with your grandpa if you have guts. Come out. Come out. Come out. Lei Jianhong shouted furiously. He cursed in all directions. His eyes had already turned blood red. His mind seemed to have sunk into a half-crazed state. He quickly ran in all directions and searched everywhere. But he couldn't find even the shadow of a person. Then he suddenly fell to the ground and burst into tears. The other four people also turned pale with fright at this sudden turn of events. They all rushed over and wailed loudly. The five of them carefully searched the area, but couldn't find any trace of the enemy. They had never expected that only one of their 10 brothers and sisters would be seriously injured when they had fought against so many experts of Tianxian. They had even intervened in Shun Xian's battle. But they hadn't expected that 4 of them would be killed after being caught off guard. Lei Jianhong's eyes were red. He pulled out the throwing knife from his 9th disciple's body and carefully observed it. He then gnashed his teeth and said, "I've never seen this kind of throwing knife before. It must have been the weapon of the mastermind. We'll kill it as long as we see it again. We'll avenge our brothers. We'll avenge this enmity." The 4 people shouted at the same time. Their grief and indignation couldn't be any greater. Suddenly, the woman cried out in alarm, "Where are the other 3 throwing knives?" Everyone turned around and looked at each other in dismay. They were stunned. The ice-cold rainwater had mercilessly poured into their necks after they had withdrawn their Xianqi defense. Everyone felt a chill from the depths of their hearts. In that short moment, the flying daggers on the other 3 had already disappeared, leaving behind only a bloody wound on their bodies. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They felt their blood run cold. Chapter 191. The blood continued to gush out, and the rain continued to fall. In a split second, the blood turned from red to pale red, and gradually became colorless. The young woman had wanted to take out a throwing knife to compare, but when she turned around, she was the first to discover that the throwing knife that was so close to her had suddenly disappeared. This was no small matter, and her whole body began to tremble. Could it be that there really are ghosts in this world? At this moment, the shock of the 5 people could not be any greater. In the end, what kind of person could get so close to these 5 Sky Xian experts without being detected? Perhaps it was the Master Shun Xian, but if the Master Shin Xian wanted to deal with them, would there be a need for a sneak attack? But if it wasn't Shun Xian, then how could it be explained? Even if he couldn't explain himself, it was still secondary. This place was not suitable for him to stay for long. But when it was time to leave, the 5 people who were still in good condition simultaneously shed tears of grief. When they came, there were 10 brothers and sisters, and they were chatting and joking with each other, full of confidence. But when they left, there were only 5 people and 4 corpses left, and one person's life or death was unknown. Even if he was still alive, he would be permanently disabled, and there was no hope of recovery. What a miserable thing this was. The 5 people each carried one, and it was just right. As they left, they couldn't help but look back, and the hatred in their eyes seemed to be burning even in the heavy rain. The throwing knives were naturally the masterpiece of Jun Moxie. When he heard that these people were experts invited by the Li family, he had already made up his mind to kill them. Now that the Xiandan had attracted these experts, they would immediately leave after the end of the Xiandan fight. At that time, Tianxiang City would still be the same Tianxiang City, but since the Li family could invite these people once, they could invite them again, especially since Li Yuran and these people were fellow disciples, which made Jun Moxie even more worried. These Tianxian experts were nothing in front of the Shunxian experts, but these people were enough to pose a threat to the Jun family once this matter was over. These people would be a formidable force if the Li family were to go crazy and attack the Jun family. It is better to prepare for a rainy day than to use an umbrella after the rain. Kill them first. Hitman Jun's moral sense was weak, so why would he care about the lives of so many people? Especially after the battle, all of them were exhausted and had withdrawn their Xianqi defense to rest. Jun Moxie felt that if he missed such a good opportunity, he would be letting himself down. But he didn't expect to be able to kill 4 of them in one go. Controlling 4 flying daggers at the same time, while invisible, was already Jun Moxie's current peak technique. He didn't expect that all 4 flying knives would be successful. He even killed a Tianxian expert. This made Jun Moxie quite proud of himself. A long time passed in silence. Suddenly, the tree that Lei Jianhong and the others had surrounded suddenly spoke. "You're finally here? Hee, I've been waiting for you for a long time." Then the voice continued, "You still haven't come out? Don't tell me you want me to catch you myself?" There was a hint of anger in the voice. The voice wasn't loud, nor was it angry. It was indifferent and seemed to be talking to a person face to face. But there was no one around. Of course, there was no sound either. After a while, the voice sounded again indifferently. Unexpectedly, it repeated, "You're finally here? Hee. I've been waiting for you for a long time." It paused for a moment, and then continued, "You still haven't come out? Don't tell me you want me to catch you myself?" It repeated itself again after a while. Still, no one answered. He would repeat it every once in a while. He wasn't impatient, nor annoyed. But it was reckoned that someone would have gone insane if they'd been listening to his emotionless voice after he persistently repeated it more than 10 times. There was finally a response. 2 black-clothed men appeared in the field like ghosts. Their faces were full of amazement. They had thought that there were people in this world who could discover them. But those people couldn't be more than a handful of people. They hadn't expected that one of them would appear here. Moreover, the 2 of them had been discovered when they were about 100 feet away from this place. Moreover, it was raining heavily in such bad weather. This was simply unimaginable. One of the sturdy black-clothed men raised his thick eyebrows. Then he opened his wide and thick lips and said in a daze, "Who are you? How did you know that we've arrived? Don't play tricks with me. Hurry up and come out." These 2 mysterious men were naturally the 2 black-clothed men who'd snatched the Xiandan, and they'd clearly left. During the process of snatching the Xiandan, Jun Moxie had suddenly activated the Hongjun Pagoda in order to ascertain their identities and to lure them to come and meet up again. The reason why Jun Daxiao was so sure that they'd come back for a second time was very simple. Previously, when the world's purest spiritual energy had suddenly emerged, Shi Changshao and the other Xian realm experts hadn't noticed it. But these 2 mysterious men had already sensed it with exceptional sensitivity. In fact, if they hadn't sensed it, Jun Daxiao wouldn't have waited here. Naturally, if no one had sensed it, then the scheme that Jun Moxie had painstakingly laid out could be declared a failure. Although the 2 mysterious men had sensed the aura that they desired the most, there had been too many opponents at that time. Moreover, the person who'd released the aura hadn't actually appeared. So, they had no choice but to retreat first. But the 2 of them were suspicious. Although this person hadn't appeared immediately, he'd released such an aura. Moreover, he'd retracted it after just one touch. Presumably, he'd had other tricks up his sleeves. Or, perhaps, he wanted to greet the 2 of them. Due to their desire for the pure spiritual energy, even though they knew that there was a certain amount of risk involved, they still had to try it. Therefore, the 2 of them had waited until everyone had dispersed before sneaking back. And they'd come back again. After all, to them, the spiritual energy that had been emitted by that hidden expert was the most tempting thing in the world. They believed that there wouldn't be any miraculous elixirs or heavenly treasures that could attract them more than this. Therefore, once they discovered it, they wouldn't let it go. This was exactly what Jun Daxiao had expected, and this was also Jun Moxie's main objective. Compared to luring them to come here, luring a large number of experts into a great battle, crippling the strength of the Li family and the Silver Blizzard City's experts, successfully killing Lei Jianhong, and even finding a way to use the level 9 Xiandan. All of these had become insignificant, because their arrival could perhaps resolve the Jun family's biggest disaster if they were lucky. In fact, they could at least delay the arrival of that disaster. The reason for this was Jun Daxiao's operation of his trump card. Now that these people had arrived, it was time for Jun Moxie to turn the clouds with one hand and rain with the other. I don't know if my wish will come true. A burst of laughter resounded in front of the 2 mysterious men. It was deep and powerful, but it was filled with a strange feeling. There wasn't even a shadow of a person in front of them apart from a big tree. But this voice was clearly in front of them. These 2 men's origins were admittedly very strange, but they had never seen such a supernatural event before. They took a step back and placed their palms across their chests as if they were facing a formidable enemy. "Who the hell are you? Come out." Without any warning, In front of the two mysterious black-clothed men, another black-clothed, masked man suddenly appeared. It seemed as if this man had drilled out of the ground, but it also seemed as if he had materialized out of thin air. These two men weren't any weaker than the 8 great masters, but they hadn't been able to detect how this black-clothed man had appeared. Even the leader of the 8 great masters, Yin Bi Chun, wouldn't be able to pull off such a feat. This was extremely strange. However, these two men didn't know that even the leader of the 8 great masters, Yin Bi Chun, wouldn't be able to detect this sudden appearance of the yin-yang escape technique. However, the two mysterious men were more concerned about another matter than this man's appearance. That was because they had sensed that familiar, cordial, and unusually thirsty aura from this black-clothed man's body the moment he had appeared. The two men were now completely sure that this wasn't an illusion. "Who are you? What's your purpose in bringing us here?" the thin and tall man asked in a vigilant manner. "I naturally have my reasons for bringing you here." The black-clothed man's eyes flashed as he said, "I'm Feng Juqing. May I ask your names? You don't know our origins?" the thin and tall man asked in a puzzled manner. This man in front of him wasn't ordinary, so he wouldn't use a fake name to deceive them. But he had never heard of the name Feng Juqing. Could it be that we've been living in seclusion for so long that we've become ignorant? I've roughly guessed your origins, but I don't know your names. After all, it's not difficult to determine your origins, right? This black-clothed man was obviously Jun Moxie. He would have never shown himself if he hadn't ascertained the origins of these two men. "Oh, that's right. I'm Long Crane, and this is my 4th brother, Bear Mountain." The thin and tall man nodded. "So, it's Brother Foam. I've heard so much about your great name. It's a great honor to meet you in person. It's a great honor to meet you today." "What? You've heard of the name Feng Juqing?" Jun Moxie tilted his head. "This is the first time I've heard of this name. And you've heard so much about him? Did I accidentally borrow the name of a famous person?" "Of course we haven't heard of him." The burly big bear said honestly, "Isn't this the polite greeting you guys are used to saying when you meet each other? Pretending to be close? Why did you take it so seriously? I despise you." "Crap, I'm being looked down upon by a bear." "Ahem, the two of you have traveled thousands of miles to Tianxiang City. Could it be that you've come here for this peak level 9 Xiandan?" Jun Moxie touched his nose. "This isn't a peak level 9 Xiandan. Ordinary Xianqi experts might have been fooled, but unfortunately we've been." Long Crane flipped his palm, and the Xiandan that Jun Moxie had forged appeared in his palm. "It's true that we've come here for the rumored peak level 9 Xiandan, but it seems that we've been fooled." He looked at Jun Mo Siem meaningfully. "But since I've met you, it can be said that I didn't make a wasted trip. Perhaps we've gained a lot from this trip." Chapter 192. That's only natural. What I can give you is naturally far more valuable than a peak level 9 Xian core. Jun Mo Cs snorted and said in an indifferent tone, but full of temptation. Young Master Jun wasn't putting on an act this time. As long as he had the Hung Jun Pagoda, he could give these two people benefits that they could only dream of. In fact, it was benefits that they couldn't even dream of. Perhaps you've misunderstood. The reason why we want to obtain the 9th level Xiandan is not to increase our strength. Long Crane's slender eyes revealed a look of pain. What we want to do is very simple. We want to take back the Xiandan. We don't want to use it for anything special. Jun Moxie was sensitive enough to understand that the Xiandan was a Xiandan in the mouth of these two men. Is there something else? The word Xian has the meaning of Xiandan, which is completely different from automatically. "Third brother, why are you talking nonsense with this brat? Brat, hurry up and hand over that treasure of yours, and I'll take it and leave. Don't make things difficult for yourself." Bear Mountain glared at Jun Moxie with his huge eyes as he spoke in a robbing tone. "Otherwise, I'll slap you to death. No matter how good a treasure is, it's meaningless if you don't have a life to enjoy it." "That's what you say, third brother. Slap me to death? Are you sure you have that kind of strength?" Jun Moxie rolled his eyes as he spoke in a tone full of pride and confidence. Jun Dashao was surprised that this guy could speak such philosophical words, but he couldn't understand where this guy's confidence came from. I believe that no one would doubt my unfathomable strength just by looking at my methods. Of course not. Bear Mountain shook his head and puffed out his chest. But you certainly don't have the ability to slap me to death. Why are you shouting if you don't have the ability? Besides, when did I say I wanted to slap you to death? I really admire you. Jun Moxie looked at him in puzzlement. Then, Old Bear, are you the fourth? Yeah. How did you know? Bear Mountain scratched his head and asked in surprise. How would I know? Your third brother just introduced you as his fourth brother. How would I know? Just now, I thought that he was pretending to be stupid, but now it seems that he really is stupid. Jun Moxie did not know whether to laugh or cry. You really are an idiot. Jun Moxie racked his brains for a long time, but he really couldn't find a better adjective. How do you know my nickname? Did Second Bro tell you? You've seen Second Brother? Bear Mountain's eyes widened, and he suddenly jumped up. You must have seen it before, otherwise, how would you know? I'm warning you. Stop calling me by my nickname. If you call me again, I'll get angry with you. I think I should just call you Lao Xiong, Jun Moxie said readily. That's right. Bear Mountain shook his head proudly. I'm a bear to begin with, so calling me Lao Xiong can be considered as fitting. Jun Moxie was completely speechless. It wasn't that he had never seen reckless people, and he had also seen people like the Duga family. Other than that, he had also seen stupid people, and he had seen naive people, but he had never seen such an outrageous one. He was really a home. He really lived up to his name as the legendary Bear. Bear. Jun Moxie seemed to be very tired, because he had been using his divine sense to maintain the state of summoning the Hongjun Pagoda, trying his best to maintain the pure aura of the heaven's perception that he had fused with the Hongjun Pagoda. He definitely couldn't let the two people in front of him see through his true strength. Otherwise, it would be terrible, because once his true strength was revealed, this expert with unfathomable strength would immediately become a mouth-watering piece of meat. An expert without sufficient strength did not have the qualifications to speak on equal terms with an abnormally strong high-level Shin beast. Tell me your true intentions. Long Crane looked at Jun Mo-Xie vigilantly. He felt that this black-clothed man in front of him was full of mysteries. His intuition told him that this man's strength wasn't very high. But he couldn't see through this man's strength. Moreover, this man's body was full of temptation. In fact, almost all high-level Shin beasts would find it difficult to resist such a fatal temptation. True intentions? It's actually very simple. I just want to trouble the two of you to do something for me. Jun Moxie didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Ha ha ha. You want to ask us to do something for you? Do you know who we are? Why do you want us to do something for you? Long Crane laughed twice and said with some mockery, Don't think that you can coerce us to do anything for you just because you have something that we desire. No matter how precious or rare it is, there's nothing we can't let go of. Your Excellency, you're too naive. Even if we take 10,000 steps back and say that we really need it, can't we just rob it? Didn't I snatch that Shindan just now? Your Excellency may be amazing, but are you confident that you're stronger than Shi Changshao and Solitary Eagle? Is that really the case? There's no need to resort to insinuations in front of famous people. Your Excellency is a top-notch Shin beast, so you're not deceiving yourself. Why did you come back if you don't care about that thing? You didn't have to come back. As for the word rob, are you sure that you have the ability to do so? I may not be stronger than Shi Changshao and Solitary Eagle, but do you really think that you were able to snatch the Shindan by relying on your tyrannical strength? Jun Dashao's tone changed and became even more awe-inspiring. Earlier, the mysterious duo had seemed awe-inspiring and had managed to deal with many Shin Xian and Tian Xian and had even managed to escape with ease. Firstly, they had grasped the timing very well, and secondly, Shi Changshao and the others had fought for half a night, and their strength had been greatly reduced. Otherwise, even if they were Shin beasts and their bodies were far stronger than humans, and their strength was on par with Shan Xian's, they wouldn't have been able to escape so easily. They were all top-level Xian beasts and naturally understood the importance of this matter. Moreover, they didn't want to speak against their conscience and couldn't help but be at a loss for words. Jun Dashao was also a sensible person and naturally wouldn't provoke the duo any further. He chuckled and said, "It's a win-win situation for both of us, so there's no need to make such a big fuss. If the two of you think that my conditions are too harsh, we can always discuss it again. As the saying goes, asking for a sky-high price and paying the price on the ground, it's nothing more than that." Jun Dashao paused for a moment and then changed the topic. "If I'm not mistaken, the two of you have already reached a bottleneck in the growth of your strength. Although the two of you are gifted, it's not easy for you to break through early. Especially in this world, there are too few people like you, so you have even less experience in breaking through bottlenecks. Even if you want to find help from others or learn from them, you can't. Just now, you also felt that the thing that I have is what you lack the most. Isn't that enough? Strength is the most important thing in this world. Without strength, the two of you will end up the same as that level 9 pinnacle Xiandan that you're fighting for." Jun Moxie smiled cruelly, although it's not possible for now, but according to the advancement of the Xian beasts in the Xian continent, as long as a Xian beast reaches the peak of its innate talent and doesn't advance for a long time, its strength and energy will also degenerate as it ages. At that time, I believe that even an ordinary supreme martial artist, Shun Xian, would be able to put you to death. Don't tell me that the two of you want to stay in the dark Tian Fa forest and never come out for the rest of your lives? The two of them started breathing heavily at the same time. Although Jun Dashao's words were sharp, they had pointed out the side of their hearts that they were most unwilling to mention. Think about it. How beautiful the outside world is. Whether it's food, drink, accommodation, power, wealth, or beautiful women, the boundless world, the colorful world. As long as you have enough strength, who in this world can do anything to you? Everything is at your fingertips. Jun Moxie continued to use flowery words to tempt them. "Do you think I'll be able to instruct you as long as you advance to the next level? What you'll be exchanging for is nothing more than this matter. Perhaps you'll only need a few days to exchange for a lifetime of freedom and incomparable strength. Isn't that enough? Although your words are quite reasonable, we have a habit of never doing things for the weak. Why would we listen to the orders of a weakling if you can't subdue us and show that you're stronger than us?" Long Crane's eyes flickered as he thought for a long time. These two people were the Xian Beast Kings who had come out of the Tian Fa forest. The top-notch Xian Beasts had their own dignity. Even if they yearned for something, they would never bow their heads to the weak. Ever since Jun Moxie had found out that his aura could attract high-level Xian beasts, and that the little Iron Wing Panther had unexpectedly advanced to the next level, Jun Dashao had been confident that he was a rare commodity. Therefore, he had been planning to capture the legendary Xian Beast King. If he could attract the Xian Beast King, then Jun Moxie wouldn't have to fear anyone in this world anymore. However, there was a precondition. The Xian Beast King had to be willing to listen to his orders. Only then would he be able to be like the great master Yunbi Chun, who had led a level 9 Xian beast to roam the world unhindered. However, young Master Jun's target wasn't a young Iron Wing Panther, but a level 9 Xian beast. Therefore, his plan had to be meticulous. Not to mention the fact that he wouldn't be able to get a level 9 Xian beast to accompany him if he made a mistake. In fact, his life could be in danger at any time. Therefore, Jun Dashao had made a meticulous plan. First, he had used the level 9 Xiandan as a gimmick to spread the news around the world. He was confident that the Xian Beast King would get wind of it. Since the other experts were so interested, there was no reason for the Xian Beast to sit back and watch. Jun Mo Xie's goal was admittedly to increase his grandfather's strength, or he could use his words to incite a war and weaken the enemy's strength. But his ultimate goal was only one: to attract the Xian Beast King. Then he would think of a way to subdue it. His plan was that even though his strength wasn't enough, he had the Hongjun Pagoda to borrow its power. His lack of strength was the reason why he had such a daring idea. If I had the strength of the great Master Shin Xian, would I still need the help of Xian beasts? Therefore, Jun Moxie had been training day and night in order to strengthen his connection with the Hongjun Pagoda. Ever since he had obtained the yin-yang escape technique, Jun Moxie's idea had become more and more urgent. Chapter 193. However, Jun Mo Xie had been restraining himself. He wanted to break through the second layer of the Hongjun Pagoda at the very least, and he wanted to reach the Earth Xian level by the standards of this continent. Only then would he be able to give it a try. Otherwise, the risk would be too great. However, the plan would never be able to keep up with the changes. The sudden appearance of the Shuihun Manor had forced Jun Moxie's plan to be brought forward. Although there was still a period of buffer time, Jun Mo Xie decided to immediately launch his immature plan as a precaution. Perhaps this plan was also one of the reasons why Jun Moxie dared to confront the Shuihun Manor. Of course, the success rate of launching his plan now was almost negligible. However, Jun Moxie still decided to give it a try. If he succeeded, then everything would be settled once and for all. If he failed, then the Jun family and the Shuihun Manor would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. In Jun Moxie's mind, it was no big deal to die a man's death like a bird. F***ck off. It's just a life. Do you really need to cherish it so much? However, Jun Moxie had never imagined that his plan would actually succeed. Not only did the great master Shen Xian get involved, but 2 of the legendary 8 great masters had also come. After the big fight, everything went according to his plan. The most successful part was that the legendary king of the Xian beasts had finally received the news and rushed here. However, what made Jun Moxie depressed was that not only had the legendary king of the Xian beasts come, but there were also 2 of them. Moreover, these 2 king of the Xian beasts didn't have any estrangement with each other. Moreover, both of them were arrogant and unruly. This almost ruined Jun Moxie's original plan of seducing and subduing the king of the Xian beasts. Who was the one who told me that there was only one king of the Xian beasts? I really want to spank him. Jun Daxiao immediately remembered that this information had come from his grandfather, Jun Tian. After all, Jun Tian hadn't reached the level of Shen Xian. Among the people he had come into contact with, there were very few experts. Most of them were secular officials and generals. So, he really didn't know much about this matter. Actually, for Grandpa Jun to know about the existence of the king of Xian beasts was already very rare. These fellows, who stood at the pinnacle of the profound beasts, were basically equivalent to the 8 great supreme martial artists. Most of them concealed their identities when they came out. Even if they came into contact with other profound practitioners, they would only come into contact with Shen Xian. Even if they came into contact with other profound practitioners, they would be easily killed by them. Naturally, no news would spread. Another reason that caused the collapse of Jun Moxie's plan was the Xian beast companion of the great master Yun Bichun. In fact, it was also a king of Xian beasts. And this matter seemed to be restricted in the special circle of Xian beasts. And this matter was even more secretive. For example, Shichang Xiao of the 8 great masters had temporarily stopped chasing after Long Crane when he found out about the identity of the great master Yun Bichun. All in all, Jun Daxiao realized that his original intention was a little too blindly optimistic, and he had set his goal too high. Therefore, he had to settle for the next best thing. Perhaps you don't want to be my companion, but I'm very tempting. Can you help me do something for me? Moreover, you won't be able to refuse my offer. I hadn't expected that this request would be met with a rebuff. Do I need to subdue them to be strong? Isn't this F***king nonsense? Why would I be afraid of Li Ju Tian if I had the strength to subdue the 2 of you? I would have beaten the second great master up until his face turned red. Then I would have stuffed that old man up his ass. Jun Daxiao was speechless. He was depressed, and he was at a loss. How could he not see through Long Crane's plan? Well, let's see. Then, we brothers would do something for you if you're really strong. But we brothers won't be able to snatch your treasures if you're just a spear made of wax. As for doing something, do something for me. A Xian beast has such a cunning mind. Jun Moxie was even more speechless and depressed. It seems that the initiative has shifted Subdue? How do you want me to be subdued? June Moxie was somewhat impatient. Damn it. I'm going to explode like a tortoise, and you two aren't going to bow down to me? And you're still chattering with me? I'm the main character here. I can't bear this anymore. I can't bear this anymore. I can't bear this anymore. Isn't it simple? Let's fight and we'll know. Big Bear revealed a rare and treacherous expression. It was hard to believe that such an expression would appear on his incomparably simple and honest face. What nonsense are you talking about? Long Crane hastily reprimanded his fourth brother. Shouting and killing all day long is the behavior of a boorish man. We're experts. He looked at June Moxie and thought, fourth brother doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If this guy is like Yun Bi-chun, then won't we follow in our second brother's footsteps? But we can't run away like our second brother. Won't we be tortured to death by our eldest brother? It would be good if we could torture him to death, but we'll be finished if we can't. We're experts of the present age. We can't imitate the likes of ordinary people. Let's fight 3 rounds to determine the winner. Long Crane stretched out 3 fingers towards June Moxie. 2 wins out of 3 rounds. If you win, we brothers promise to help you with one thing. However, we won't be lacking in benefits. Yes, you won't be lacking in benefits if you lose. We won't help you with anything. Big Bear added enthusiastically. So, you're saying that I'll have to give you benefits regardless of whether I win or lose. June Moxie stared at him in disbelief. Big Bear, you're such a talent. Why don't you go into business? You'll definitely make a profit. No, you should just go and rob. The bandits will definitely respect you too as their ancestors. In fact, June Moxie had already agreed in his heart. Everything would be fine if he won, and they would owe him a favor if he lost. Although, they might not necessarily acknowledge this favor, but he still needed to maximize the benefits first. Big Bear's thick and hairy face also turned red. He looked at June Moxie and felt that his aura had become even stronger. He couldn't help but stick out his thick tongue and licked his lips as he laughed foolishly. He rubbed his hands together and gave a thumbs up. Where did you put it? I've been searching for a long time, and I can't find it. You really have some skills. You're using your divine sense. June Moxie was startled. These two aren't stupid. I was wondering how they could be so calm. It turns out that they were secretly using their divine sense to probe me. Fortunately, I didn't give it to them for free. Otherwise, if she was really done in by a beast, it would not be good to say it. Long Crane also felt that his fourth brother's words were somewhat shameless. So, he smiled awkwardly and said, "We can change it if you have any objections. But it's impossible for us to bow our heads and obey your orders." Who wants you to bow your heads and obey my orders? You've cultivated bitterly to reach your current realm. I don't have any other good points, but I don't force people to do things against their will. Well, that's it. I don't care about these small benefits. June Moxie waved his hand, but you can't propose a separate method of competition since it's a competition, right? For the sake of fairness, I'll set the question for the first round, and you'll set the question for the second round. If there's a need for a third round, then the question will be set by the winner of the second round. What do you think? Good. Then, what do you say for the first round? Long Crane and Big Bear discussed it for a while, and then happily agreed. We both have our own strengths. Do you think we'll lose to you? I'll make an action, and it doesn't matter which one of you manages to do it. Then, it'll count as my loss. June Moxie thought for a moment, and then the corners of his mouth revealed a sly smile. Good. The two men were very confident. Their Xian-Chi was at the peak of their realm, and their bodies could expand or shrink at will. So, wouldn't it be easy for them to imitate someone else's actions? Long Crane's heart was bursting with confidence. Don't talk about ordinary actions. I can even tie a knot with my neck. What's more difficult than that? Ha ha ha. Watch carefully, June Moxie shouted, and the two men quickly opened their eyes wide. A strange scene appeared. June Moxie's black masked body suddenly stood there calmly, and then his 2 feet slowly sank into the ground, followed by his legs' waist. And finally, his head also sank into the ground. The most amazing thing was that the ground was still flat, and there was no hole at all. His whole body had disappeared in front of the two men's eyes, and they could only watch helplessly as he disappeared. After a while, there was a sudden crashing sound at a place about 30 or 40 feet away. The two men hurriedly looked over and saw a masked man's head grow out of the ground and then slowly rise up. Chest, abdomen, waist, legs, June Moxie had shown off in a godly manner, and there wasn't a single drop of water on his body, nor was there a single speck of mud on his body. How? How is this possible? Long Crane and Big Bear's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and their eyes were like searchlights as they looked at June Moxie's body, and they swallowed their saliva at the same time. Then, they suddenly thought of something, and went to the place where June Moxie had disappeared and punched the ground with a bang. The mud splashed everywhere, and a big hole appeared in the middle of the ground. The two men moved their heads closer and carefully examined it. They even grabbed a handful of soil and carefully examined it to see if it was different from other places. The two men busied themselves for a long time and finally determined one thing. The opposite party shouldn't be playing any tricks. But what kind of method is this? Isn't it too strange? Is he even human? The two men unconsciously lost their wits and still couldn't believe that such a thing had happened in front of their very eyes. Now it's your turn. June Moxie was very gentle and spoke in a very modest manner. It's just a small trick, and it's difficult to enter the Hall of Elegance. I'll lose this match if you two can do it once. This was obviously a pretentious act. The yin-yang escape technique was unique in this world, and it was even unique in his previous world. The people of the Xian continent hadn't even heard of this technique, so how could he do it? Chapter 194. So I've won the first round? June Moxie deliberately asked the silent Long Crane. The decision was clearly in Long Crane's hands, and June Moxie obviously wouldn't let him off. Yes, we've lost. Long Crane smacked his lips twice and reluctantly said with difficulty. Even though he was filled with admiration and shock, he was also clear that with the mysterious ability that Ling Han had displayed, winning this match was practically equivalent to winning all 3 matches. What kind of remarkable ability did Ling Han have to be able to achieve this? This was simply beyond the scope of his understanding, because his third brother's so-called speed and strength were simply useless in the face of his opponent's godly ability. This was what Long Crane was thinking, and Xiong Kai Tian was probably thinking the same thing as well. Thank you for letting me win. June Moxie smiled and cupped his hands. It's your turn in the next round. I don't mind if you two come at me together. But we do mind. We're simply looking for trouble if we go head-to-head with you. Do you think we're fools? The two men who had been eager to give it a try were suddenly at a loss for words. There is no doubt that June Moxie's display of strength had shaken the two men and had thoroughly dispelled their small calculations. Long Crane and Big Bear frowned at the same time, and their faces revealed an awkward expression. How can we compete with such an expert? It seems as if we'll lose in everything. The two men whispered to each other for a while, and the more they discussed, the more they felt that they were losing. And the more they discussed, the more they felt that they wouldn't be able to win. The two men didn't speak as they looked at each other and were at their wits' end. It seems that you won't be able to come up with a solution in a short time. Why don't you two discuss it first, and I'll go home and take a nap? June Moxie teased. Why are you so arrogant? Your father, will compete with you compete. Xiong Kai Tian was furious. He opened his mouth to curse, but he was stuck. He tried to say 5 or 6 times, but he couldn't say what to compete with. Instead, he was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. What do you want to compete in? June Moxie asked. By F***CK your grandpa. Xiong Kai Tian couldn't think of anything for a long time, so he flew into a rage out of embarrassment. Why are you in such a hurry? We agreed that we would set the questions. Why are you rushing us? Don't you have the demeanor of an expert? June Moxie's face was filled with black lines, and he almost fainted. F***CK my grandpa? Fortunately, he heard the next sentence. Otherwise, June Moxie would have had the urge to roast a bear paw on the spot. Demeanor of an expert? You guys don't have the slightest hint of an expert. Are you going to compete or not? It was almost dawn. You're very free, but this seat still has a lot of things to do. June Dashao wasn't a good-tempered person either. He immediately flew into a rage. You two are men. How can you be more long-winded than women? I'll compete with you. Xiong Kaitian heard him calling him a woman. That was the most intolerable thing to him. He jumped up in anger. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind. He shouted, I'll compete with you in peeing. What? Jun Moxie heard these words. He felt as if he had been struck by lightning and fell to the ground. He felt dizzy as he looked at this burly man in front of him. He had a fierce face, and his entire body was exuding a valiant aura. He couldn't have imagined that the words compete in peeing would come out of his mouth. Does he think that he's still a 3-year-old? Jun Moxie couldn't believe that he had misheard. Long Crane was also startled. His sharp mouth opened wide, and his slender eyes couldn't help but widen. In fact, his pupils seemed to be getting smaller and smaller as a result. Compete in peeing? Jun Moxie's mouth was wide open. He looked like a duck that had been struck by lightning. He shook his head as he spoke. He was still doubting his own ears. That's right. Compete in peeing. Bear Mountain seemed to be throwing caution to the wind since he had already said it. He felt a little heroic. He was like a prostitute who had been flirting with him. But he had suddenly stripped naked. He had become somewhat unscrupulous. I, your father, want to compete in peeing with you. How about it? We agreed that the second round of the competition would be decided by us. Do you want to go back on your word? Let's compete. How do you plan to compete? Height or distance or more? Jun Moxie's mouth was crooked. He bared his teeth and hissed as he sucked in a mouthful of cold air. A supreme divine Xian expert, a grandmaster-level figure, actually took the initiative to challenge me to a pissing contest? I participated in this competition before, but I've done it before I was 3 years old. I've never done it after I was 3 years old. A big man, a male creature, in front of outsiders, took out his own things and just did that. No matter how one looked at it, it was not good to say it. This guy was too fierce. Could it be that animals, oh no, high-level Xian beasts did not care about this? What is this? But at this moment, he had no choice but to bite the bullet. Who asked him to underestimate the other party's level of shamelessness? That's not right. The crane and the bear were originally beasts. Adding on the fact that they were at the top, naturally, they were worse than beasts. First, we don't compete in height. Second, we don't compete in distance. Most importantly, we don't compete in quantity. The few methods you mentioned are used by uncouth people. We are seniors. How can we be so uncouth? Big Bear snorted twice and cleared his throat. Even though he had the skin of a black bear, he still blushed a little. However, if they were to lose this battle, the two of them would have to do something for this unknown person in front of them. Who knew what kind of request this person would make? If this kind of person wasn't confident in doing it, how could it be easy? So, Bear Mountain made up his mind. Damn it, no one saw it. I'll be shameless. What can you do? As long as we win the competition, it doesn't matter if we're beastly. We're not humans anyway. You did a movement just now. We can't do it. So, we admit defeat. Bear Mountain tried his best to keep his face straight. He was afraid that if he relaxed, he would reveal a look of shame. Now, I will also do a movement. As long as you can do it once, we lose. If you can't do it, then you lose. The movement of peeing. Jun Moxie's eyes widened. This thing has a special movement. This seems to be something that no one taught me when I was born. Now that I've grown so big, I can do it with one hand, two hands, or even with my hand behind my back. Whether it's standing or lying down, shaking my butt, or jumping up high, or even running while doing it, it's not a difficult thing. As for drawing circles and other things, it's not a problem at all. If I really can't do it, I can squat. That's fine too. Other than that, I don't need to use my asterisk to do it. Then I really can't do it. Nonsense. Of course it's the movement of peeing. How can it be the movement of drinking wine? Bear Mountain was already embarrassed. Seeing him like this, he felt even more guilty. He hurriedly scolded him and reminded him, watch carefully. I'm going to start. Jun Moxie couldn't bear to watch. He closed his eyes. What is this? Do I have to watch you pee with my eyes wide open? Damn it. You're not a peerless beauty. Do you really think that you can pee? Just as he was thinking this, Bear Mountain exhaled and roared. His two thick feet stomped on the ground. His burly body flew majestically into the sky. It was amazing. His movements were elegant, natural, and without any sloppiness. He was indeed at the level of supreme Shun Xian. Good movement. Jun Moxie raised his head and clapped his hands without hesitation. However, his eyes were full of confusion. Didn't this guy say he wanted to pee? Why'd he go up to the sky? Jun Dashao's doubts were soon answered. Bear Mountain grinned proudly in the air. His body was still rising. His hands quickly untied the waistband of his trousers while he was still ascending. Then he calmly reached inside and grabbed it. Then he nimbly fished it out. His cheeks trembled. He supported himself with one hand in midair. Then he puffed out his chest and sucked in his abdomen. Then he exerted his strength, and a glistening yellow water arrow spurted out like a flood of the yellow river. Jun Moxie was flabbergasted. In fact, he had a strong urge to faint. Long Crane suddenly covered his face with his hands. What does it mean to be shameful? This is what it means to be shameful. No, it means to be shameful to humans. It should be shameful to be a beast. Bear Mountain's tall and sturdy body was still standing upright in the air. His eyes were deeply looking into the distance. His chest was bulging, and his hands were placed under his crotch in a bird-catching manner. His body was slowly rotating, and the sparkling water arrow was spurting out in all directions. The thickness was uniform, and the distance was the same. At first, it was in the form of a water column. Then, it turned into a series of water droplets by the time it neared the ground. Bear Mountain's sleeves fluttered in the wind. His movements were extremely agile and graceful. He was extremely confident and at ease in the air. Looking from afar, he looked elegant and dignified. In fact, he looked like an immortal, except for the indecent parts. His body was also slowly descending, but the speed of his descent was so slow that it was almost negligible. Finally, it came to an end. The water arrow that had been spurting out in all directions slowly shrunk and finally stopped flowing. Then, Big Bear shuddered in the air in a very comfortable manner. His two hands quickly moved and nimbly stuffed that thing into his crotch. He even had the time to tie a bow knot on his belt. After everything was done, Bear Mountain's body leisurely descended. His bearing was graceful, and his expression was refined. His face was not flushed, and he was not out of breath. He smiled at Jun Moxie and nodded his head in greeting. I didn't drink enough water earlier. Bear Mountain seemed to be a little regretful. He felt that he hadn't done it to perfection. Jun Dashao was extremely shocked. He remembered a day in his previous life when he was walking on the street. He coincidentally saw a drunk man running to the command post of the traffic police at the crossroads. Then, he unscrupulously took off his pants and sprayed water at the rolling traffic in all directions. At that time, he already thought that man was a master of his generation. But compared to Bear Mountain, that man paled in comparison. Just the difficulty alone was at least 1,000 times higher. What an amazing man! Bear Mountain tightened his belt and said proudly, "Kid, I'm done with my demonstration. Now it's your turn." Jun Moxie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked at this supreme master, whose skin was 3 times thicker than the Great Wall of China. Jun Moxie shook his head in admiration. He sighed deeply and said, "I give up." Chapter 195. I'm not bullying you. This is something that everyone can do. Bear Mountain opened his mouth wide and was very happy that he had one around. I admire you. I accept my defeat wholeheartedly. Jun Moxie said sincerely. Jun Moxie's decision to admit defeat was a decision that he had no other choice. One must know that Jun Dashao was also a shameless person. Moreover, not only did he disguise himself, he even masked his face. What couldn't he do? Wasn't it just peeing? You could be shameless, but I don't have the courage to show my spear. It wasn't that he was disgusted by Bear Mountain, but he really couldn't do it. Although this was indeed an action that any male animal could try. If it was purely a high-altitude operation, any ordinary expert would be able to do it easily. But peeing in the air, even a number 1 supreme being Yun B. Chun might not be able to do it. This was a physiological reaction. As long as one was still a human, it was absolutely impossible to increase one's xian qi when it was convenient. No matter if it was internal strength, xian qi, or dou qi, it was useless at this time. Otherwise, one's body would be as hard as steel. Regardless of front or back, big or small, it wouldn't come out. It wasn't difficult for him to jump up and unzip his pants. However, if he had to relax every muscle in his body in the air and let the glistening yellow thing fall out, it was absolutely impossible. Once he relaxed, he would fall to the ground with a thud. Perhaps some people would ask why Bear Mountain was able to do something that even Yunbi Chun couldn't do. Could it be that Bear Mountain's strength was higher than Yunbi Chin's? This had nothing to do with one's own strength. This was the fundamental difference between humans and Xian beasts. Xiong Kai Tian and his brother's strength was at the peak of level 9 Xian beasts. All of them had a special skill, or innate skill, which was levitation. Xian beasts could completely rely on their senses to stay in the air. On the other hand, humans had to use their qi to do so. Therefore, in this aspect, Xian beasts were undoubtedly much stronger. Moreover, Lao Xiong was the king of Xian beasts. In fact, Bear Mountain's ability to stay in the air was the weakest amongst his brothers due to his weight. But he was still capable of doing such a thing. Moreover, he knew that Long Crane would rather lose than do such a thing. Therefore, Bear Mountain had generously volunteered for this task. Of course, there was another important point in sending Lao Xiong out. Lao Xiong was also the one with the thickest skin among the few of them. Sure enough, he was able to win the battle in one fell swoop. Now, both sides had one win, one loss, and one draw. Long Crane's back was turned, and his long and slender neck was hanging down. It seemed as if he didn't have the face to see anyone. This was too shameful. The dignified lord of Tian Fa, and a holy beast of his generation, had used such a despicable method to win. Fortunately, there were only 3 people present. Moreover, the person opposite them had an unfathomable cultivation. So, he should be an expert with profound self-restraint. Perhaps he wouldn't mind the 4th brother's despicable method. So, he wouldn't make it public. Damn it, why didn't I say that no one is allowed to leak the results of the match to a 4th person? Brother Crane, congratulations. Your 4th brother's ability to defy the heavens is truly world-shattering. This little brother is sincerely convinced and humbly admits defeat. However, Jun Moxie wouldn't let him off. Long Crane's skin was much thinner than that of Bear Mountain's. So, how could Jun Daxiao let go of such a good opportunity to ridicule him? Otherwise, how would he be able to vent out the depression he felt from losing just now? According to the rules, the winner of the 2nd round has the right to decide how the next round will be fought. Now, I asked Brother Crane's opinion. Long Crane coughed twice, and then turned around in embarrassment. He fiercely glared at Bear Mountain. Then, he revealed an extremely unnatural smile. His throat felt as if he had feces in it as he spoke in a muffled voice. Brother Fong, you're very magnanimous and magnanimous. You let me win. You let me win. You flatter me. This is true talent. I lost fair and square. Who told me to reincarnate into the wrong body? Jun Moxie said magnanimously. He had placed extra emphasis on the words genuine and magnanimous. However, he had forgotten that he himself wasn't any better than Bear Mountain. Bear Mountain had used his own innate skill. However, Jun Moxie had cheated even though it was his own skill. It's about the same weight as 8 tails. He didn't know how Long Crane could see that Jun Daxiao was magnanimous and magnanimous. But that look in his eyes was very strange. It could be said that Long Crane was a Xian crane in human form. So, he had always been noble and proud. So, he would rather concede defeat than use such a despicable method to win. But he couldn't do anything to his reckless 4th brother. So, he might have won this fight, but his heart wasn't satisfied. He felt that using such a cheap trick was a disgrace to his identity. Secondly, it was a disgrace to his opponent. Thirdly, it wasn't a good thing to talk about. But he has a very magical ability. The more he thought about it, the more ashamed he felt. And he saw June Moxie concede defeat. And he felt even more ashamed. And he felt that the person before him was a magnanimous man. And he wanted to make friends with him. The next round. Long Crane stared at him for a long time. Then he remembered that the next round would be decided by him. But there wasn't much to compare with. Facing such an opponent was a real headache. Especially, his opponent's confident look had made Long Crane feel a little guilty. He had a vague feeling that no matter what he competed in, it was all within his opponent's expectations. This was the second time in Long Crane's long life that he had felt this way. The first time was when he had faced Yunbi-chun. Long Crane suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Could it be that this person is comparable to Yunbi-chun? Bear Mountain stupidly squeezed his way forward. Then he grinned and said, "Third brother, haven't you thought about it? Isn't this a very simple matter?" Long Crane rolled his eyes. He wasn't interested in talking to this guy. "Don't tell me you have a way." June Moxie looked at him with interest. "Do I still need to think about it?" Bear Mountain shook his head. "The next round will be a pissing contest. Isn't that enough? This guy has tasted the sweetness. He's shameless to the end." June Moxie and Long Crane staggered as soon as these words left their mouths. In fact, the two of them were so shocked that they almost rolled into a pile. What kind of beast is this? Isn't this too despicable and shameless? He's worse than a beast. No, this isn't enough to describe him. But there's no more despicable word to describe him. He's too much of a beast. Why don't you go and die? Don't you have any shame? Long Crane cursed. He felt the urge to burst into tears. Then he ferociously kicked June Moxie's buttocks and flew into a rage. "Get lost. Even if you're shameless, your third brother is. Get lost." Bear Mountain awkwardly rubbed his buttocks and said, "Third brother, there's an outsider here. Can't you give me some face? No matter what, I'm still a respectable person. If you really want to kick me, then wait for my back to kick me. You're in the wrong here. Bah, what face do you have? You've thrown away a long time ago." Long Crane scolded as he expected better from June Moxie. "Scram to the side, don't open your mouth. You were the one who couldn't come up with a solution, but I did. I even won the competition. You don't want to say anything, but you don't want me to say anything." Bear Mountain grumbled and walked away. "Actually, I don't think there's anything wrong with what your fourth brother just said. It's completely in line with the previous agreement. Let's compete again." June Moxie suddenly rolled his eyes and said with a strange smile, "Ah." Long Crane couldn't help but cry out in alarm. "Then, won't you lose without a doubt?" Bear Mountain also spoke up. "Brat, don't think that Old Bear's stomach is empty just because he's done it. Our reserves are huge, so it wouldn't be a problem to do it 2 more times." Old Bear seemed to want to continue speaking, but Long Crane glared at him, and he immediately became listless. Then he muttered, "I'm doing this for his own good. That's why I'm reminding him. I'm an expert, and I have to be honest. I naturally won't doubt fourth brother's words. But it's not necessarily boring to repeat the same procedure. So, how about we change the medicine and not the soup?" Long Crane snorted and said, "I'd like to hear the details." June Moxie snorted and smiled. "It's very simple. Fourth brother demonstrated how to pee in the sky. This time, we'll do it underground. What do you think? Pee underground?" Bear Mountain suddenly turned around. Both of them opened their eyes wide at the same time. How is that possible? Once a person goes underground, it's already a miracle that they don't suffocate to death. There's mud and stones all around them. How can they release it? Even if they're lucky enough to find a relatively loose place to release it, they won't be able to escape from it. "So, you're saying you can't do it?" June Moxie smiled faintly. "It's simply impossible." Both of them shook their heads at the same time. It wouldn't be a problem if it was in the sky. But it's impossible if it's underground. Do you think you can do it? What would you say if I really did it? June Moxie snorted and said in a provocative manner, "Mother asterisk her, who asked you to act shamelessly. This time, I will give you a taste of your own medicine. Then, we'll consider it our loss." The two of them looked at each other and smiled. This kind of thing, humph. It seems that this guy lost in the sky and wants to win it back underground. But this kind of thing is impossible even if the two of us work together. This guy may have shown that he can drill into the ground, but it's completely different from peeing in the soil. Even if he's in the soil, his whole body needs to relax. Let's see how he does it. In any case, we can't think of a better way to compete. So, we'll just watch him make a fool of himself. It seems that we're going to have a draw in this competition. The two of them felt a little disappointed as they thought about this. We've already discussed the conditions before, but we haven't made this clear yet. We can't snatch it by force. So, why don't we discuss it with him? As long as it's not too difficult, we'll agree to it. Watch carefully. Young Master June snorted coldly and raised both of his hands. Instantly, the two of them felt the aura that they had been yearning for so much thickening. They couldn't help but greedily sniff and lick their lips. Their hearts were itching to the point that they could die from it. Chapter 196. Today's third update has arrived. Monthly votes. Smash it. They looked at June Moxie again and found that his feet had already sunk into the soil. But there was a relaxed smile in his eyes. June Moxie's body had already sunk into the soil, and only his chest was exposed. The soil around him had become soft after the rain, and hadn't spilled out a single bit. Everything had happened so naturally and silently. June Moxie snorted, and suddenly, a sparkling arrow of water sprayed out from the ground 3 feet in front of him. It splashed out with a high-spirited momentum, and carried a unique masculine smell as it splashed onto the two men's bodies. The two men's complexions changed, and they hastily covered their noses with their hands. Their eyes were full of disbelief. He really did it. That water arrow was obviously created by the torrent of water, and it didn't seem like he was cheating. June Moxie pulled himself out and asked, "How is it?" The two men looked at each other, and then hung their heads dejectedly. "You're good. We admit defeat." June Moxie breathed a big sigh of relief. It's finally done. But he didn't know that the two men on the opposite side were also very relieved. We've finally lost. It was admittedly difficult to win, but the losers were also very eager to lose. This kind of bet was really rare. "What do you want us to do?" Long Crane frowned and said, "We're willing to accept defeat, but I want to remind you that we can only do one thing for you. And it's only one thing. Moreover, you can't default on what you promised us. You can't default on any reason. That's natural. As long as you accomplish my task, I'll naturally give you the reward you deserve." June Moxie extended his hand towards Long Crane and smiled as a greeting. Long Crane looked at him with a puzzled expression and slowly extended his hand to shake. Long Crane's body shook as the two hands came into contact with each other. Then, an indescribable look of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. Then, he closed his eyes with a look of enjoyment on his face. A stream of pure spiritual chi flowed into Long Crane's body from June Mocie's palm. Long Crane felt as if he was taking a stroll in the clouds. His entire body felt as if he was floating in the air. Every inch of his meridians, blood vessels, and every bone in his body seemed to be jumping with joy. His Xian Qi, which had been dormant for a long time, had unexpectedly become unprecedentedly active. Long Crane could feel that his Xian Qi would break through the bottleneck in one fell swoop as long as his Xian Qi remained active. The pleasure came in waves, and it was simply too intoxicating. God, what if I can't feel this kind of pleasure in the future? Why don't I discuss with him and help him do a few more things? Long Crane, who had always been calm and collected, trembled with excitement. How many years had it been since he had made any progress? Just thinking about it makes me cry tears of bitterness. I'll reach the peak of my strength in 30 years if I don't make a breakthrough. Then, I'll slowly slip away. It'll be too late, even if I get the opportunity by that time. Bear Mountain was dumbfounded. What's wrong with Third Brother? Isn't it just a handshake? Why is he so intoxicated? Long Crane felt that his cultivation was gradually rising to the peak. But he suddenly felt his hand go empty. His Xian Qi went from boiling to freezing point with a bang. It was so uncomfortable that he almost went crazy. June Moxie withdrew his hand and looked at him with a smile. "How is it? Do you believe that I have the strength to help you now?" Long Crane had an impulse to hold Jun Dashao's hand at this moment. But third crane was a Xian Beast King. He took a few deep breaths, closed his eyes, and looked up to the sky. He tried his best to calm his excitement, and said in a slightly trembling voice, "I believe you. I'm afraid that no Xian beast can resist your temptation. This is a fatal temptation for us." Jun Moxie saw that Bear Mountain was puzzled, so he smiled and extended his hand towards him. Then he gave him a taste of that feeling. Bear Mountain's big eyes opened perfectly round. It seemed as if he had seen a living immortal. His thick bare paws tightly grasped Jun Moxie's hand and wouldn't let go no matter what. Then he begged, "Give me a little more, give 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 me. I want it." A man with a messy beard was almost 3 times the size of his own body. He was holding his hand like a naughty child asking for candy. And those ambiguous words, what kind of feeling was this? Jun Mo Xie felt a chill run down his spine. He pulled his hand back and shook it. He felt goosebumps all over his body. He was extremely regretful that he hadn't taken the initiative to grab that shameless troublemaker's hand. Fourth brother. Long Crane scolded, "Look at you. You don't have the demeanor of an expert. Why are you in such a hurry? We haven't discussed the conditions yet." How can I not be in a hurry?" Bear Mountain glared at him. The blue veins on his forehead were bulging. "I've been stuck at the peak of the primary level for 20 years now. Every day feels like a year. I don't have any conditions. You shut up. May I ask what you want us to do for you? With your magical powers, what can't you do yourself?" Long Crane stopped Bear Mountain and pushed him to the side. Then he asked in a rather urgent voice, "There's nothing particularly difficult to do, especially for you. It's a piece of cake. I have a reason why I can't act. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you off so easily." Jun Moxie played it down and continued to act like a big hoodwinker. "Oh, tell me quickly, is there anything in this world that we can't do? You dilly-dallying to keep me in suspense is making me very angry." Big Bear jumped up from behind Long Crane and waved his fists as he spoke impatiently. "I'll do it for you no matter what it is. The great master Li Ju Tian has been making me very uncomfortable lately. In fact, I feel disgusted." Jun Moxie looked at the 2 men's faces as he spoke. "You go and kill him." What? What kind of joke is this?" Long Crane and Bear Mountain roared at the same time. Then they became dumbstruck. Long Crane and Big Bear had a feeling that something big was about to happen when they had heard the name Great Master Ju Tian. And the 2 of them had almost fainted when they had heard the name Great Master. He's the second of the 8 Great Masters. He's the second most powerful man in the world. He's not inferior to Yun Beiqian in terms of strength. Wouldn't we have killed Yun Beiqian if we could kill him? It's hard for this mysterious man to speak in such an understated manner. Go and kill the great master Li Ju Tian. Do you think we're going to kill a chicken? Are you trying to play with us? That's easy. Wouldn't it be like plucking the stars and the moon if we wanted to do it? I reckon that even the eldest brother would only be able to defeat Li Ju Tian, but he wouldn't be able to kill him. There's only one way to kill Li Ju Tian. Create a situation where Li Ju Tian can't escape. Then the eldest brother and the eldest brother will act at the same time. But I'm afraid that at least one of the 3 of them will be buried with him, even if they have such an advantage. He's risking his life for this. What's wrong? Is it difficult? You can tell me if it's difficult." Jun Moxie looked at the 2 men and asked in a surprised manner. "It's not that it's not difficult at all. It's that it's impossible." Bear Mountain snorted twice. "Why don't you tell us to pluck the stars from the sky and kill Li Ju Tian? Do you think it's like slaughtering a pig or a cow? Is it that easy? Let's do something else." "What should we do?" "The Shuehun Manor is the only one who has provoked me. What's the use of asking you to do something else? It's just that it's not convenient for me to do it myself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to take advantage of me." Jun Moxie spread out his hands with a helpless expression on his face. "Since you can't do it, then forget it. This bet is invalid, and you don't need to listen to my instructions. I'll take care of Li Ju Tian myself. I'll just wait for a few days." "What? Invalid?" "No. Even if you want to invalidate it, we won't do it. If you didn't let us experience that kind of pleasure, then invalidate it. But now we absolutely can't. If it weren't for the mysterious man's unfathomable strength, Big Bear would have already made his move. Wait. Long Crane waved his hand and said, "You just said that the Shui Han Manor is the one who has provoked you, and not Li Ju Tian himself. Is that right?" Long Crane had finally grasped the crux of the matter, and this had given him a sudden sense of excitement and hope. The heavens never bars one's way. The two Xian beasts thought in their hearts. It would be a great pity to lose such an opportunity. Fortunately, there's still a turning point. What do you mean? Isn't the Shui Han Manor the same as Li Ju Tian? What's the difference between the two? Jun Moxie asked in a calm tone. It seemed as if he didn't care about this matter at all. That's a big difference. Bear Mountain suddenly became excited. Li Ju Tian travels the world all year round. He doesn't stay at the Shui Han Manor. In fact, he only returns once a year. So, how can the Shui Han Manor and Li Ju Tian be lumped together? So long as Li Ju Tian isn't involved in this matter, then the Shui Han Manor won't be a difficult matter. The famous Shui Han Manor isn't a difficult matter for my elder brother. It's better to have strength. Is that so? That's right. The Shui Han Manor belongs to Li Ju Tian. But you don't need to deal with Li Ju Tian to deal with the Shui Han Manor. Jun Moxie asked doubtfully. Then he patted his forehead. I almost killed the wrong person. The two Xian beasts rolled their eyes in disdain. What do you mean by almost killed the wrong person? Is Li Ju Tian a good person? You almost scared the two of us to death before. Chapter 197. Well, I'll take a step back and change my target to the Shui Han Manor. However, compared to Li Ju Tian, the Shui Han Manor has clearly fallen to a lower level. It seems that I've suffered a big loss in this transaction. Can I? Jun Moxie frowned. It seemed as if he wanted to go back on his word. It seemed as if he wanted to haggle. Brother, you can't go back on your word, ah? The Shui Han Manor is one of the two strongest forces in the continent. You can't be dissatisfied. Only us brothers have this kind of method. Anyone else would have screamed at the heavens. Bear Mountain hastily said, You think that the Shui Han Manor is easy? First, we can't destroy the Shui Han Manor, or else Li Ju Tian will go crazy. Second, we must fulfill your request and make the Shui Han Manor suffer. How can this be an easy task? I don't know how many brothers will have to mobilize in order to accomplish this. Fourth brother is right. The reason why the Shui Han Manor is weaker than the Silver Blizzard City is because Li Ju Tian is always away, and Han Feng Shui never leaves the Silver Blizzard City. In fact, the Shui Han Manor and the Silver Blizzard City can keep pace with each other if the two great masters aren't taken into account, Long Crane said in a low voice. In that case, let's do it. Jun Moxie wrinkled his eyebrows. He was unwilling to give up. However, I've suffered a loss. So, I'll add one more request. You must fulfill this request, or else I'll forget about this transaction. Please say it. As long as we don't kill Li Ju Tian or destroy the Shui Han Manor, we can fulfill any other request. Bear Mountain saw that Jun Moxie's tone had softened and hastily made a promise. I've heard that Li Ju Tian has a son named Li Tungyun. That kid is even more annoying than Li Ju Tian. This man must be taught a lesson, and if it's convenient, we might as well kill him. Jun Moxie smiled sinisterly. Of course, we can castrate him. That won't do. F*CK me. Both of them opened their mouths at the same time. This boy is Li Ju Tian's only child after he was over 80 years old. So, Li Ju Tian's bloodline will end if we kill him or castrate him. I'm afraid that Li Ju Tian and our Tian Fa forest will form a blood feud that will last for generations. And we can't bear the consequences of that. If this doesn't work, and that doesn't work, then what are we talking about? Jun Moxie seemed to be a little angry. Besides, Li Ju Tian was able to conceive at the age of 80. He's only 100 years old now, so he can certainly conceive at the same time. So why are you so anxious? He's already the laughingstock of the world for having a child at the age of 80. If he had another child at the age of 100, Oldly would probably be drowned in saliva. Xiong Kaitian shook his head, his eyes filled with longing. However, Long Crane replied in a serious manner. Your request is too excessive. In fact, it's no different from destroying the Shuehan Manor. So we can't agree to it. How about this? Your purpose is to teach the Shuehan Manor a lesson. So, I can beat Li Tengyan on your behalf. In fact, I can make him bedridden for a year and a half. What do you say? Long Crane pondered for a moment. Then, he proposed a compromise. We'd rather give up on this deal if you insist on killing Li Tengyan. The 8 great masters may have some personal grudges against each other, but they'll always work together as long as we're involved. Yin Bei-chun is the only exception, but the rest of the 7 great masters will cooperate with each other for the time being, even if they have a huge grudge against each other. Therefore, we'll agree to teach the Shuehan Manor a lesson. But that's the limit. Your Excellency is magnanimous and magnanimous, so you should be able to understand our difficulties. Good. I'll take a step back. If you can guarantee that the Shuehan Manor will fall into chaos, and if you can break Li Tengyan's legs so that he won't be able to crawl for a year, then we'll agree to this deal. Jun Moxie took advantage of the situation and went one step further. Long Crane and Bear Mountain Man discussed this for a while. Then, they finally said, good. That's it, it's a deal. It's a deal. Jun Moxie smiled and extended his hand. We'll clap hands to make an oath. You can't go back on your word. Clap. The 2 men clapped their palms together and revealed a smile of satisfaction. Long Crane and Bear Mountain Man were very excited. After all, it would be very worthwhile if they could exchange this matter for an opportunity to advance. Wasn't it just the Shuehan Manor? Moreover, they wouldn't need to face Li Ju Tian. In fact, they would only need to spend a little effort. In fact, this was a huge advantage compared to the benefits that they were about to receive. The 2 men thought about the glory of advancing to the next level and the leisurely and carefree life they would have after that. So, why would they need to fear the 8 great masters if they could advance to the next level? What a joke. Jun Moxie was even more excited. He had only used a small portion of the Hong Jun Pagoda's enormous aura, and had been able to obtain such an unexpected result. In fact, he had almost solved all of Guan Qinghan's problems. Moreover, he had also gained at least a year's worth of time. In fact, this was a huge advantage for them. This matter will be completed within a month from today. How about it? Jun Moxie asked in a somewhat hasty manner. He couldn't use his spirit's sense to its limit, and was on the verge of being exposed. No problem at all. Long Crane and Big Bear hurriedly agreed. Then, they looked at each other and smiled in a very refreshing manner. 1 month is too easy for us to accomplish this task. This is tantamount to 2 great masters joining hands to deal with the Shuehan Manor. How could it take a month? They're looking down on us. Brother Feng, how will we find you after we're done? Long Crane finally asked this question. It could be said that he was quite calm. You can go to the Jun family's residence in the Tianxiang city and tell Jun Wui that the Shuehan Manor has canceled their plans to go north. Tell them that the Shuehan Manor has canceled their plans to go north. Then, wait for a moment, and I'll immediately meet with you. Then I'll fulfill my promise. Jun Moxie made a solemn vow. He thought in his heart, the Silver Blizzard City and the Shuehan Manor have been dealt with for now. But it's only a temporary solution. I'll talk to you about the Silver Blizzard City's problem after a month. I'm not afraid that you'll run away, since you've taken a bait. Ha ha ha. Jun Dashao's insides were filled with treachery as he laughed twice. Well, there's no time to lose. We 2 brothers will bid farewell here. Long Crane cupped his hands and then pulled Bear Mountain Man to leave. Wait, there's one more thing I'd like to ask you too. Jun Moxie suddenly called out to the 2 men. May I ask, what is the use of the peak level 9 Xiandan? The 2 men stopped in their tracks as they heard this question. They turned around and looked at him for a while. Then Bear Mountain Man asked, why are you asking this? Don't tell me. You really have a peak level 9 Xiandan? Do you think that I need a peak level 9 Xiandan with my abilities? I'm just asking since you're arguing with each other. It's fine if you don't want to tell me. We'll take our leave now. Jun Moxie was startled. It seemed that these two men were very concerned about this matter. He couldn't help but feel a little regretful. You're right. You have such a pure, mysterious, heavenly chi in your body. So, the Xiandan is useless to you. So, you don't need a peak level 9 Xiandan. Long Crane said with a sincere tone of envy. This mysterious man in front of them not only has a mysterious heavenly chi, but it's also incomparably pure. His strength is unfathomable. Even Yun Bi Chen wouldn't be any weaker than him. So, why would such a person need a peak level 9 Xiandan? Long Crane and Big Bear thought this at the same time. They couldn't help but feel ashamed of themselves for gauging the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a lowly person. The two men smiled and said, Actually, there's no harm in telling you. You humans call the Xiandan, but we have another name for it. It's the most mystical thing for us Xian beasts. It's also the crystallization of our life's essence. But even a Xian expert's body will explode if it's used improperly. So, it must be stabilized with the heavenly stargrass. Then, it must be refined with the tricolored mushroom. Then, it must be supplemented with the 9 Xian root. Then, a Xian expert can guide the Xian Qi inside the Xiandan. Then, a person's cultivation will soar by leaps and bounds overnight. But these 3 medicines are legendary. Moreover, even a Xian expert is hard to find. Long Crane sneered. Who doesn't have selfish motives? That's right. Ha. It's strange that someone would fight to the death for such a troublesome matter. But it's very strange. Why bother? June Moxie said in disappointment. The greed of human nature is the most terrible thing in this world. The two men nodded in agreement. They felt that June Moxie's words had touched their hearts. Then, they sighed at the same time. The 3 men cupped their fists and saluted. Then, the 2 silhouettes disappeared in front of June Moxie's eyes like 2 wisps of smoke. The 2 Tian Fa kings couldn't wait to carry out their task. The rainstorm had already stopped, and dawn was approaching. June Moxie heaved a long sigh of relief. His mind relaxed, and he fell down on the muddy ground. He felt as if his head was being pricked by needles. June Moxie's spiritual power had almost been consumed in one night. In fact, he was barely able to support himself. He was afraid that Long Crane would discover his true strength if he were to disconnect from the Hongjun Pagoda. However, the rewards of this night's hard work were beyond his imagination. It hadn't gone as smoothly as he had expected. But he had solved the problem of the peak level 9 Xiandan and the Shuehan Manor in one fell swoop. And this was considered a great harvest for June Moxie. Long Crane and Bear Mountain had caused a ruckus, and Li Tengyun had sustained serious injuries. So, it was estimated that he would be able to drag this out for at least half a year. But June Moxie was confident that the June family's overall strength would increase after that. And even if the Shuehan Manor were to launch a large-scale attack at that time, they wouldn't be as helpless as they were now. In fact, June Moxie was very much looking forward to it. How will I sharpen myself if I don't have an opponent? There will only be progress when there's pressure. June Moxie will come knocking on their door, even if the Shuehan Manor doesn't come after him once he feels that his wings are fully fledged. You dare to have designs on my June family's women? You must have eaten a leopard's gall. I won't be able to vent my anger if I don't kick Li Tengyun in this life. Shuehan Manor, Silver Blizzard City. You've been arrogant for too long, haven't you? Talented people will emerge in every generation, and they'll lead the way for hundreds of years. Young Master June gritted his teeth and sat up from the ground. Then he dragged his exhausted body and walked back home in a joyful and painful manner. I'm going to be busy for the entire day. I've been writing since last night for fear that I'll stop updating. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to keep up with the updates. So, I've been writing since last night. That would have been great. I'm regretting it. I'll hit the wall. I'm not saying that I'm having a hard time. I didn't say that I was having a hard time, right? It's just that my fingers are cramping. But I'll do what I've said. A man is a big tofu. Every mouthful of saliva will create a hole. Even if I can't create a hole, I'll still disgust people. Everyone says so. Hey, let's not talk too much. Let's get back to business. Today's moving can be considered as a joyous occasion. I'll extend my weathered, tender, and white hands to everyone. I'll ask for a few or dozens or hundreds of monthly tickets as a gift. I'll say this very seriously. I'm not greedy. 1,000 or 800 is enough. I don't want too much. Otherwise, I'll get angry. Chapter 198. Jun Moxie had been in a coma for the whole day. The amount of spiritual force he had expended was too much for him to bear. It was almost an overdraft beyond the limit. Even the powerful spirit of the hitman couldn't bear it. Under the tremendous pressure of the two great masters, Shen Xian, he persisted for almost the whole night. Finally, the conditions were negotiated, and the two beasts had left. Jun Moxie finally relaxed. He didn't feel anything when he was under the watchful eyes of powerful enemies. But now that he had relaxed, he almost didn't have the energy to go home. If not for the safety instincts of his previous life as an assassin, he might have collapsed at any time. Jun Dashao was finally able to reach the gate of the Jun family's residence. He was completely exhausted. At this moment, not only was his spiritual force exhausted, but his physical strength was also exhausted. He didn't even have the strength to move a finger. He was carried in by the guards at the gate and laid down on the bed. Then he lost consciousness. Little lowly Ku'er served the entire night without a care in the world, not daring to close her eyes for even a moment. Jun Wuyen, who had gone to join in on the fun, decided not to participate in it, as the level of the people present was too high. He returned home early, his mind clear as he avoided the undeserved calamity. He sat alone in his trademark wheelchair, sitting in his nephew's courtyard for the entire day. His brows were wrinkled, and his face was full of worry. What did Jun Moxie mean when he said those words before he fainted? The Shuehun Manor should be fine for the time being. What did he mean by the Shuehun Manor should be fine for the time being? Why should it be fine for the time being? Since the Shuehun Manor had released this rumor, how could they not carry it out in one go? If there was no more news, wouldn't the reputation of the Shuehun Manor become a big joke? How could such a strong start and weak finish be the overbearing style of the Shuehun Manor? The third Master Jun had spoken in a heroic manner that day. He had said that he wouldn't fear any hardships or obstacles in order to protect his nephew's widow. But the third Master Jun was actually quite frightened in his heart. After all, the enemy was the famous Shuehun Manor. Moreover, they had the backing of one of the 8 great masters, Li Jutian. This strength wasn't something that the Jun family could contend against. He had provoked the Silver Blizzard City in the past. The lord of the Silver Blizzard City, Han Fei Shui, hadn't even been involved. But the Jun family was already on the verge of extinction. Now, he had provoked an existence that might be even more terrifying than the Silver Blizzard City. Jun Wu Yi had concealed his face when he had discovered the appearance of the level 9 Xiandan. If he had been lucky enough to obtain it, then perhaps he would have been able to advance further. If he had been able to enter Shan Xian's realm, then perhaps he would still be no match for Li Jutian. But he would still have been able to fight for a chance of survival for the Jun family. As for why he had returned early, it was because the third master had clearly determined that he couldn't do anything about it. There were many experts present, and their strength was terrifying. In fact, they had far exceeded the scope of his own abilities. If he were to force his way through, then he would only be courting his own destruction. And at this moment, his precious nephew suddenly told him, the Shuehun Manor should be fine for the time being. Jun Wu Yi was both happy and surprised by this news. He didn't doubt the veracity of this information. After all, his nephew was very resourceful. In fact, he had brought him many surprises. However, he was also very surprised. He didn't doubt it, but that didn't mean that he wasn't surprised. How did my nephew do it? The other side is the 8 great masters, Li Jutian. This is truly unimaginable. Guan Xinghan had also come to see him a few times. She had heard Jun Wuyi's report of Jun Moxie's words. Then, she saw that he was exhausted to such an extent that her eyes couldn't help but moisten. It could be seen that Jun Mo Xie was putting his life on the line for this matter. She didn't know why he had said those words with such confidence. But Guan Xinghan had chosen to believe him for no reason at all. June Moxie's sneer had appeared in her mind that day. I will kill her before the June family is destroyed if things don't work out. I will never let her sit in the Shui Han Manor's bridal sedan chair. These cruel and cold-blooded words had left Guanqing Han feeling happy and safe. That was because what she had heard wasn't cruelty or bloodshed. Instead, it was a man who had sworn to protect her with his life. Guanqing Han quietly stood in the courtyard. She gazed at the drifting clouds in the sky. She recalled the many things that had happened in the past 2 days. Suddenly, she became absent-minded. She felt that her heart was in a mess. She didn't know what she was thinking. June Moxie woke up the next day. The lanterns were already lit. "You're awake." June Wooey didn't turn his head. He heard some movement on the bed. So, he quietly opened his mouth. "Third uncle, why are you here? How long have I been asleep?" June Moxie closed his eyes for a while. Then, he opened them and sat up. Shaking his head, he felt that the bone-piercing pain before he fainted had already disappeared. Replacing it was a warm and comfortable feeling. His entire body felt as if he was soaking in warm water, incomparably comfortable. The flow of qi in his meridians had also become much thicker and calmer. This was different from his previous life. In his previous life, there were many situations where he had overdrawn his physical and mental strength. Regardless of whether he was able to complete the mission or not, he would have a headache for a few days. His body would also need to recuperate for a few days. But this time, the result was completely different. This time, he had overdrawn his mental strength. Although the process was quite dangerous and his body was extremely tired, the connection between his body and the Hongjun Pagoda had become closer. Moreover, he didn't know if it was because of extreme misfortune, but his cultivation of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune had taken a big step forward. He could faintly feel that he was about to touch the threshold of the second layer. June Moxie suddenly had a very real feeling in his heart. He believed that within the next 2 or 3 days, he would be able to enter the second layer of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. This also meant that he would be able to enter the second layer of the exquisite Hongjun Pagoda. This feeling was undoubtedly very mysterious. Jun Dashao didn't know why he had such a feeling, but it was real. There was no reason for it. You went out once. Why did you come back half dead? How can I not be worried? Jun Wooey snorted. In the last month, you have only gone out 6 times. But these 6 times, the first time was when the princess tried to assassinate you. You were seriously injured and almost lost your life. The second time, you actually played around with the magnificent Jewel Hall. Is that place a place you can casually play around with? The third time was when you accompanied me out. But you didn't stop there. You massacred the Huanghua Hall. The fourth time was when you went out to curse the second prince and caused havoc in the Ni Chong Pavilion. The fifth time was when you were assassinated. Now this is the 6th time, and you're still half dead. I heard from the guards that you almost died at that time. Jun Wooey counted on his fingers. His face was somewhat helpless. June Moxie, June Sun Xiao, I say, can you change your bad habit of getting rid of your guards when you go out? If you can get rid of the guards, that naturally means that you have the ability. But do you really have to be annoyed to have one of your own people following you? Even if you, Grandpa Da Xiao, are kind, don't let the people who care about you worry about you. How can you not let people worry? Jun Wooey snarled. You should at least let me know what you were doing out there. Last night, there was a heavy rain and you disappeared. This morning, if the guards hadn't opened the door early, you little bastard would have been washed away by the flood. Jun Moxie touched his nose and smiled awkwardly. He lowered his eyebrows and respectfully listened to the scolding. To be able to make the usually calm third uncle so angry and call himself Grandpa, it was clear that the third uncle was really angry this time. Therefore, Jun Dashao didn't dare to refute and acted like an obedient child. Let's talk about today's matter. What I did today was a shady business. How can I let others follow me? Third Uncle Jun reprimanded in one breath. Even though Tian Xian was an expert, he couldn't help but gasp a few times. Looking at his nephew's overly honest appearance, Jun Wooey also felt that he had done something unnecessary. This kind of reprimand was equivalent to not saying anything to his nephew in front of him. Since young, He had been reprimanded more seriously and harshly than this many times. Even punches and sticks were thrown at him. But this guy didn't change a bit. Besides, with the means that Grandpa Dashao had, it would be strange if he could listen to it. I'm too lazy to be angry with you. That's a waste of energy. Jun Wui waved his hand. Tell me, what did you mean by the words you said this morning? Jun Wui's hair stood on end as he thought of the possibility that his nephew might have played tricks on those terrifying people last night. Jun Wui was so scared that his whole body's hair stood on end. What words? What do you mean? Jun Moxie didn't have any recollection of it. He raised his head in surprise. This wasn't an act. In fact, he was too tired before he fainted. So, he had forgotten about it. Act. You're still acting in front of me. Third Uncle Jun's anger rose again. He growled in a low voice. The Shuehan Manor is safe for the time being. What words? Oh, the third uncle was talking about that. Jun Moxie's eyes turned rapidly. If the third uncle knew about the shady business he had done last night, he had played with 2 of the 8 great masters. He had also played with the other 4 great masters, Shun Xian. Moreover, he had trained with more than 20 Tian Xian experts and hundreds of Earth Xian experts. Moreover, he had killed 4 of them in seconds. Moreover, he had negotiated with the 2 Xian Beast Kings for half a night. Would the third uncle collapse on the spot? Would he be scared silly? Even if the third uncle was brave enough to not be scared silly, he would still break his legs. But he would still be grounded for a period of time. But he couldn't be grounded right now. It seemed that the truth couldn't be told directly. That's my guess. Well, I guessed it. Jun Moxie braced himself. His expression didn't change. In fact, he even smiled calmly. You're really good at guessing. You're really daring. How can you make random guesses like this? Jun Wui sneered. He then said, as if he was reciting from a book, last night, a large number of peak experts had gathered in the western part of the city, and they fought. It is said that one of the 8 great masters, Shi Changshao, and the solitary eagle of the grassland also participated in the fight. Moreover, the Yutang Empire's imperial preceptor, Fei Mengchen, the 3rd, 6th, and 9th great elders of the Silver Blizzard City, and many other Xinxian experts were also present. In addition, the Li family's eldest young master, Li Yuran, and the cold-blooded master, Lei Wu Bei's 10 disciples were also present. Moreover, the legendary Tian Fa King was also present at the scene. The reason for this incident is said to be that a black-clothed masked man had appeared with a legendary level 9 Xian Dan some time ago. And it has been confirmed that the Xian Dan has fallen into the hands of the Tian Fa King. Jun Wu spoke in detail, as if he was very familiar with them. Chapter 199. Cold sweat dripped down from Jun Moxie's forehead as he forced a smile. Third uncle, your intelligence network is very strong. You weren't there at that time, were you? There were so many peak experts in the Tian Xiang Kingdom. Why would I go there? Jun Wui scolded in a bad mood. This matter happened in my Tian Xiang Kingdom after all. His Majesty has already been alerted, and he has ordered a thorough investigation into this matter. Our Jun family would be too ignorant and ill-informed if I didn't know about it. He looked at Jun Moxie with a burning gaze. That's not important. What's really important, and the only thing I want to know, is the person who appeared with the Xian Dan last night. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He's a shameless bastard. Who is he? It should be a legendary senior expert. How can I guess it's such an expert? Perhaps he's the #1 expert in the world, Yunbi Chun, Shun Xian. No one else has such an extraordinary bearing. Jun Moxie said solemnly. Is it very worldly? Jun Wui's expression was like a volcano that was about to erupt. I gave you a level 6 Xian Dan a few days ago. Now, take out that Xian Dan for me to see. That Xian Dan is lying in Long Crane's arms. How can I take it out? Do you really think I can make something out of nothing? It's just a level 6 Xian Dan. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. Lost it. Well, lost it. You didn't throw it to the king of Tian Fa, did you? Jun Wui nodded slowly. Very good. Very strong. Since you woke up, I've asked you a lot of questions, and you have given me a lot of lies. Jun Moxie, Master Jun's son Xiao, You have really grown up. You have become a promising man. I don't know why you're so sure. I don't know how you managed to escape. I don't know how you managed to deceive those people. I also know that you lied because you didn't want me to worry, but Junwoo, he spoke slowly in a calm tone. June Moxie was frightened and wanted to get out of bed. Third uncle, I need a pee. I can't take it anymore. Hold it in. If I really can't hold it in, I'll pee in my pants or under my blanket. June Wooey roared. With a bitter face, June Moxie didn't dare to move. Third Master June continued. I will still punish you according to the law. Guan Xinghan was anxiously pacing back and forth in the courtyard. When she heard that June Moxie had woken up, the third uncle went in. Although June Sunshao was her brother-in-law, it was still a young man's bedroom. So, Guan Xinghan naturally didn't want to barge in. So, she waited outside. Suddenly, she heard a roar coming from the room. She couldn't help but feel nervous. Third uncle is furious. Did this guy do something stupid again? Why is he so angry? While she was worrying, bang, a white shadow flew out of the room. Guan Xinghan almost subconsciously went to catch it, but she staggered because of the violent impact. She almost fell down. At the same time, the thing in her arms screamed, Third uncle, be gentle. It was Jun Dashao. Ah, Guan Xinghan exclaimed and threw him to the ground with a loud bang. Her face was red. Jun and Mo Xie had been kicked out by Third Master Jun. Although he was screaming, he had already adjusted his posture in midair. He was absolutely confident that he could land safely. Who would have thought that he would fall into the warm and fragrant embrace of soft jade? The moment he screamed, a refreshing fragrance rushed into his nostrils. The object on his back felt extremely soft, and it seemed as if it had bounced back a little. Just as he was about to enjoy it, he was thrown out again. This time, he didn't have the time to adjust his posture. Maintaining a free-falling posture, he landed solidly on the ground. He immediately felt dizzy, and his butt almost broke into 8 pieces. Then, Junwoo leapt forward and started to beat her up. His punches and kicks were like raindrops. Guan Xinghan, who was watching from the side, had a red face. She was scared out of her wits. Guan Xinghan knew about Third Master Jun's recovery. So, Junwoo didn't have any misgivings and started to beat them up. June Moxie held his head with one hand and covered his crotch with the other. His whole body curled up into a very round sandbag. I've accepted my fate, and I'll beat him up. Do whatever you want to vent your anger. I'll leave this 110 kilograms to you. Third uncle. Just keep him alive. Third uncle, you don't hit him anymore. Don't hit him anymore. Guan Xinghan anxiously went forward to mediate. As soon as these words came out, they could clearly hear the anxiety and heartache in her voice. Jun Wooey was extremely surprised and stopped. Even June Moxie, who was on the ground, opened his eyes wide in astonishment. The uncle and niece duo stared at Guan Xinghan at the same time. Then, they looked at each other and saw the disbelief in each other's eyes. Since when did Guan Xinghan care about June Moxie's life and death? Did they see a ghost? Or was this niece's sister-in-law possessed? Guan Xinghan saw the two of them staring at her blankly. She thought for a while and understood what was going on. She didn't like this brother-in-law very much before, and now she suddenly pleaded for him. It was inevitable that it would be strange. But why would I plead for him? As Guan Xinghan thought about it, her cold face blushed to her ears. She couldn't help but stomp her feet. She was a little angry out of shame. I'm just afraid that third uncle will be tired. Beat him up, beat him up. Just beat him to death. After she finished speaking, she felt that her voice was almost coquettish. She couldn't help but feel embarrassed again, seeing that the two of them were staring at her with their eyes wide open, as if they were going to pop out of their eyes at any time. She snorted hatefully and quickly walked away. I didn't see wrongly just now. I didn't hear wrongly either. Is that person really my sister-in-law? June Moxie scratched his head in a daze. This posture was very similar to Ishio's. It seems that's right. Junwoo also spoke in an uncertain tone. Then he suddenly became angry. Who told you to stand up? It seems that you're not being honest. He continued to practice punching the sandbag a long time past. Then Junwoo swung his arm in a satisfied manner and said, "Tomorrow is the anniversary of your father's death. Come with me to the family's ancestral hall to burn incense. Then go to the cenotaph that the soldiers have erected for your father. You must fulfill your responsibilities as a son. Understand?" Jun Moxie hummed and said, "Understood." Junwoo rubbed his wrists as he sat down in his wheelchair. Then he pushed the wheelchair and left in a satisfied manner. He walked to the courtyard's entrance. Then he turned around and asked, "Shuehun Manor, what happened?" "It's really settled." Jun Moxie wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Junwoo left. Awesome. It could only be said that Junwoo was very cool. Finding an excuse to teach this kid a lesson was the greatest pleasure that Junwoo had had in recent times. The next day, the sky was still gloomy. Jun Moxie and Junwoo were sitting in a wheelchair and standing quietly. They looked at the cenotaph that could be described as magnificent. Both of them were extremely restless. This cenotaph had already exceeded the scope of a cenotaph. It was more like a palace that had been built next to a military camp. Even Junwoo had to pass through 8 sentry posts to reach this place. Moreover, it was obvious that there were countless hidden guards on both sides of the road. A cenotaph was actually guarded to such an extent. 8 extremely thick and sturdy stone pillars supported a dome. At the 2 sides were 2 complete boulders that towered over the ground, facing the direction they came from. They were both flat and tidy, with a few words carved on them. On the left side, the wind and clouds listened to the ruler's command. On the right side, heaven and earth, your majesty roams. On the ground, there were steps that were neatly paved with bluestone. On both sides, there's a group of majestic stone statues that were as big as a normal person, mounted on horses and holding spears. As they walked further, on both sides, there were 4 majestic stone statues. Each of them had their hands on the hilt of their swords, looking straight ahead. Although they were stone statues, they were carved so vividly that they exuded an awe-inspiring aura. These 8 stone statues were carved according to the appearance of real people. They were your father's personal guards. People called them the 8 White Generals. Ever since Big Brother entered the army, these 8 people had been by his side. Until he died in battle at Tianguanling, they never left. Junwoo looked at the 8 stone statues, his eyes projecting deep emotions. His tone was unusually low, with a strong sense of nostalgia. Sharing life and death, sharing glory and splendor. White guard, blood robe evil. Righteousness piercing through the rainbow, no regrets, blood soaking through the heavens. Who could compare to him? Junwoo recited in a low voice as he walked forward slowly. His eyes lingered on every stone statue. Jun Moxie could not help but be in awe. Unknowingly, he straightened his back a little. The entire cenotaph was clean, without a speck of dust. After a rainstorm, in such a late autumn season, there was not a single leaf, not a single stalk of grass, not even a single water stain. There are people in charge of this place in the army camp. There is another unwritten rule in the army. No matter who, as long as Big Brother's cenotaph is covered with dust, it is a capital crime. Must be executed immediately. Although it is not a written rule, it is far stricter than the military law. There are no exceptions. No one has ever dared to go against it, and no one can. Junwoo said in a low voice as he slowly pushed his wheelchair and walked all the way in. Jun Moxie quietly accompanied him. His heart was already shaken. It could be seen from this point that the military's love for his father had obviously reached an extremely high level. Perhaps, in the hearts of Tianxiang soldiers, the former white commander Junwoo Hui was a god of war. Under the dome, in the central position, there was a tall stone statue of a middle-aged general riding a horse. His body was straight, his eyebrows were like swords, and his eyes were bright and full of expression. Between his eyebrows, there was a domineering aura of a decisive battle. His right hand was hanging at his waist, and his left hand was holding the reins of the horse. The corners of his mouth were curled up in a cold and grim smile. It seemed as if thousands of miles of rivers and mountains were under his feet, and hundreds of millions of creatures were under his control. The cloak behind him also seemed to be fluttering in the wind. Although it was only a stone statue, it faintly revealed a majestic and mighty aura of a monarch overlooking the world and shaking the winds and clouds. Let me inform everyone here. The evil monarch's updates will be concentrated in the afternoon and evening. If there are updates in the early morning or the morning, then it means that there will be more updates or an outbreak. Perhaps it would be more enjoyable for everyone to watch if they gathered together like this. Well, if the brothers and sisters have different opinions, you can leave a message in the book review section. Yesterday, when we moved, we helped out with some drinking. Occasionally, we didn't drink, so we made a bet. For every glass of white wine we drank, we would eat a steamed bun. As a result, we ate 9 steamed buns. We were so full that we couldn't sleep at night. At 2 o'clock in the morning, we got up to practice Capture the Enemy to digest our food. At 5 o'clock in the morning, we ran all over the neighborhood, looking for a pharmacy to buy digestive pills. What a miserable life. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.